Good evening. I'll call to order this March 4th, 2025 Fairfield Planning and Zoning Commission special meeting. We'll start quick with in our administrative session, discussion of draft public hearing guidelines. Let me start this conversation off. This draft was proposed by a member of the commission, I think rightfully because of the rehash how busy we've been, busy we will be with the massive volume and influx of applications. Seems to have kind of worked into something else.
So hard to hear.
I can't hear at all.
Yeah, sure. So the draft hearing guidelines seem to have kind of morphed into something other than a little more than I thought they were going to. The draft, at least currently given to us, or at least that I had prepared for, I thought addressing all the issues. I thought fairly balanced the need to move hearings along, but at the same time, make sure that everybody had their say, both commission and public. And I stick with that. But I don't feel the need to adopt these if there's not going to be, it's not unanimity, like a solid consensus among the commission. Don't want this to be an acrimonious thing. We already have difficult jobs, I'll say jobs, but volunteer roles in reviewing these applications, especially 830Gs and regulation amendments for dense projects that can elicit emotion. And I don't really feel adding acrimony because of these guidelines if there's not consensus. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this if we get the sense that there isn't consensus. My thought may be just to maybe have some minimum impositions, but we can discuss that. So having said that, as I said, I'll open it up, but I wouldn't want to take too much time on this, 15 minutes maybe, to see if there's consensus for at least the guidelines that are proposed here, noting a lot of these things, a lot of the timeframes is at my discretion, which I think at least most people, when they talk about it, seem to think that I generally give open time to people to speak their minds. Well, I think that strikes the fair balance, but as I said, I'll open it up, but let's not spend too much time on it if there's not going to be a consensus. Thoughts? Commissioner Harrison.
Thank you. And I just confirm, according to Robert's rules, we would need 2/3 vote to change our regulations, correct? That's what we abide by in the town.
Unless it's adopted by unless we adopt another way. I thought the charter allowed us to adopt. I didn't think it was a supermajority.
Yeah, it's 2/3 vote as I referenced it, but happy to ask the town attorney
Yeah.
for reference. Look, I appreciate and understand that we are here every week. We've been here every week, I think, for the last several months, except for a brief reprieve in late December and January. We have a lot going on with our 830G moratorium coming. But I don't support these rules, even with the red lines that I saw. I don't think they're needed. I think the power relies on the chairman, who can do a great job of running the meetings. And maybe we can just think of other ways instead of hampering the public and hamstringing ourselves when it comes to getting evidence and comments. We're a quasi judicial board. We're not the RTM rather. We're not the Board of Finance. We have to gather evidence because some of our cases do end up in court, and we need to have a very robust public record, whether we like that or not. So I think there are other ways where we can run more efficient meetings. Perhaps I know when I've testified in the legislature, there are hard 3-minute allocations of your time. You can be asked a question by a legislator to get more clarity or more information. But when your time is up, your time is up. So maybe we can adopt something like that, where we just adhere to a 3-minute rule per person. And perhaps there could be exceptions made, because I know sometimes neighbors do come up to us with evidence, perhaps a video of traffic or wildlife or something to that effect. So I think there are exceptions. I don't think we should be so hard line on this. Again, I would remind the chairman that we can adhere to strict Robert's Rules of Order. And I think there are other ways to do this other than hampering the public. I don't think that's a good way to do business. I've been involved with town government for many years, since I was in my 20s. And one of my best nights at at meetings is hearing from the public, because you just provide so much information, information that makes us better commissioners at the end of the day. And we value that in Fairfield. So I don't think these rules are necessary. I will be voting against them, and I'm happy to talk to the chairman and other members on how we can run more efficient meetings, because I'm sure there is another way. Thank you.
I won't repeat the comments I made last time for the sake of efficiency. I gave my rationale for why I support the proposed rules. The only thing I'll add to that is that I feel the comments, the version that is before us currently, I think is a fair compromise to the intent and wording of what was originally proposed. And I'll also just note that despite the comments around the volume of applications we have that the chair mentioned and that others have, I noticed in some of the public comment, I think these are sound guidelines to propose if we had a fraction of that, and if we didn't have a volume issue. I just think these are a smart way to efficiently run these meetings. So I'll just reiterate the other comments I already made.
Yeah, I've reviewed these and, as they state, they are guidelines. And I think it's always helpful to have guidelines so that both the public and the members of the commission can have a reasonable framework as to how we're going to conduct meetings. They provide a great deal of discretion, and I'm not at all concerned that they will in any way hamper the public's ability to express their views or present evidence. As I've always found in my 7 years, the chairman has been very open to allowing people to fully express their ideas. But in terms of just setting down expectations and, as it says, guidelines, I don't know that these would be considered an amendment to rules or regulations requiring a supermajority, but simply a statement of our intent as to how, in general, we expect to run meetings. Thank you.
There are people down there that would be here.
Talking to them. Can you hear me? I'm just going to read a statement in the interest of efficiency. The rules are not needed. They're harmful. They'll result in less informed commission, impair our ability to make good decisions for our town, and to create a record for our court cases. The chairman right now has the power to run efficient meetings and manage our workflow. Regarding each of those points, efficient meetings. Even the most rational of the restrictions being proposed, the 3-minute per member of the public that's not part of an organized group, that really isn't necessary and it isn't flexible. A written rule is not needed. You can simply announce, the chairman can simply announce at the beginning of the meeting, they'll try to keep it to 3 minutes and let us know if it'll go over. There are often times when people provide data, measurements, videos, things like that, and they're not part of an organized group where, in all fairness, we should allow them to speak. Regarding speaking twice, if we do have to limit to 3 minutes because of a large crowd, we could perhaps do that, but then say, if time permits at the end, you can speak again. We should not have these strict rules about people speaking. Commissioners' limits, completely unacceptable. We should determine what we need before we feel we are fully informed, so we can render a good decision on behalf of our town, and so we can create a record to support our decision in court. Some commissioners don't ask any questions. Some ask a lot of questions. It might all balance out in the long run. In the state legislature, which is often referred to as some kind of analogy to what we do here, which really it isn't, but even in the state legislature, they frequently ask, the committee members frequently ask members of the public questions and prolong their discourse, could be 20 minutes or longer. The other rule about asking the applicant to stick to a predetermined time frame, that's not acceptable either. That will result in a shorthand presentation. It could result in, the attorney testifying on behalf of the experts or not having all the experts testify. I think that we need to hear from all the experts, because that is why we're here at a public hearing, to hear and learn things that we can't learn from the written material, which is often 300 pages long, full of plans and technical reports. Regarding us being required to do homework, that's a non-starter. This is a public hearing and our work should take place in the public hearing process. asking us to go to our own department staff also doesn't work because first of all, it's offline, but secondly, our staff are not engineers. They are not environmental experts. We would have to go around to different town departments and have multiple meetings to get questions answered about what should be taking place in a public hearing setting. And I just want to read something from the Connecticut practice book. Dwight Merriam, the eminent land use attorney, provided much of the narrative for the volume 9, January 25th update. I'm just going to read a little quote. It's improper in most situations for the agency to impose strict limits on speakers at a public hearing. The agency is supposed to be objective and has a responsibility to hear evidence from anyone who wants to present it on the application. Concepts of procedural due process apply at administrative hearings. Supporters and opponents of the proposal are entitled to present relevant evidence. It would be improper for the agency to cut off discussion and evidence. It could result in reversal on appeal if the person who appealed could be either side shows some prejudice from restrictions. Like in a court trial, both sides must be given a reasonable opportunity to present their case. Both sides are entitled to build a suitable record for appeal, and the agency cannot restrict their attempts to do so. Subject to these considerations, the agency may establish procedures which govern the order of speakers, the length of initial comments, but then he goes on later in the article to say you should offer a second chance to make more comments. The problems that can take place can be avoided with a chairman, imposing common sense guidelines during the course of the meeting. If there's a large amount of opposition, he can request that they limit their remarks and not do a lot of repetitive things. Obviously, no one has a right to filibuster, but the chairman has the power to do all this right now. There certainly is no need to pass rules which may or may not match or differ from Robert's rules. And if we are going to change what we currently follow, which is supposedly Robert's rules according to the town charter, we do need a 2/3 vote, because to change the rules, you have to have a 2/3 vote. That's in Robert's rules. The concept of procedural due process prevents us from placing arbitrary time limits on statements. What is permissible will depend on the situation. Everyone who wants to be heard has the right to be heard and present relevant evidence. And that's just about running the meeting. Regarding workflow, I just want to point something out. We have not been taking advantage of the timeframes the statute offers. We are allowed to take 65 days to start a hearing once we receive it. We have not done so. We are also allowed to take 65 days to vote on a matter once the hearing closes. We have not done so. Just for example, last week, the 25th of February, we had 7 new applications to refer. We can't control the date we make the referral, but we can control when we start the hearing after the referral. The referral is the date we receive it. So, but we didn't do that. In fact, the application we have tonight, we received it on January 14th. It was not required to start until March 30th, but we started it on February 25th, 3 weeks before we needed to. That's actually a longer period than we usually have. Last week, we also had 7 applications to vote on concerning several projects, 5 of which had closed just 7 days before, but we had 65 days. So we're speeding it up instead of slowing it down to space it out so we can manage our workflow a little bit better. Also last week, we had the plan of conservation and development on the calendar, which shouldn't have been because we had to prepare for that. That wasn't reached. One of the matters we had was tabled. We were supposed to talk about these rules last week. That was tabled. So my point is, let's manage the workflow by using the statutory timeframes. It's basically kind of like triage until the moratorium is granted, which should be in another few weeks. And then if things are spaced out and it bottlenecks later on, we can deal with it. We'll have fewer coming in the door. I think that's the better way of handling it. There's no need to impose the restrictions. It's form over substance. I think it will lead to appealable issues. It could deny procedural due process and lead to bad decisions. For that reason, I will not support any of these rules. I also submitted red lines, which I don't know if it was kind of late in the day. I emailed them to everyone I had an email address for, but I would like the opportunity to go over those if we're going to go through them today.
At this time, I think my comments are really, I prefer we table the matter. I'll tell you why. I'm not prepared to vote because I'm conflicted. I could see it both ways. I could see putting in guidelines. I can see putting in kind of a roadmap of how these meetings are run. The chairman does his best, but it's our job to make sure we're ready to go, prepared, know what our questions are, know what the subject matter is. And if we do have a question after reviewing the materials. And I've done this, and I can find out the answer on my own by contacting staff. I understand some commissioners want to do that in the public. I get it. I understand why you would say that. However, from my perspective, it's more about educating yourself. It's not necessarily about, being, open. It's making sure that you understand what you're looking at. So that's why I like to table it, because the other issue is the public. The public generally does repeat itself, with all due respect to all the people who participate. Most of us been on this commission on or off for a long time. And when we get 8-30G applications or major development applications such as this one, we know it's going to create a lot of interest amongst the public. And we are going to hear a lot of the same comments, good, bad, or indifferent. I fully expect tonight to hear about the traffic. I fully expect to hear about walking, about crossing the post road. These are all issues that we are very familiar with. So we don't really need to hear it 100 times. So I can understand why we want to limit the public comment to 3 minutes, because we have to get these hearings done. And we're now meeting every Tuesday night, and every one of us on this commission has a full-time job. Not only are we meeting for the 4.5 hours or 3.5 hours each Tuesday, we're also doing our homework and reading, as Kathy said, 300 pages plus of materials that are submitted. 18 PDFs with multiple pages within them of public comments. That's just one of them. So we're reading all of this, and that's got to happen at some point during the week, at night, on the weekends. And I'm a self-employed lawyer. I don't have a secretary. I do it all myself. So my day-to-day work has to be done, and I have to do the work of the commission. So I can understand why my fellow commissioners would want to limit our time, the public's time. I get it, just so we can get through these applications. But the libertarian in me says we all should have a fair shake, commissioners included and the public. That's why I'm conflicted. I'm not prepared to vote. I ask the chairman to consider the table one more time.
Is there a motion? I'll second.
No, I haven't spoken yet, excuse me. Mr. Chairman, I think your suggestion to gain. That's feedback here. Give it a minute to settle. Mr. Chairman, your suggestion to gain consensus and unanimity indicates how thoughtful you are about the opinions of the members of this commission and hearing from the public. This set of guidelines is an important document, because after every meeting, someone comes up to me and asks me about the process. I think most of the people in this room have never attended a meeting like this before and don't know the process. Don't know that you're not supposed to speak to the chairman, not supposed to speak to each other in the room, that you're testifying. This guideline, which I initiated, was to set expectations for the public, to understand that you have a limited amount of time in fairness to one another. We had someone speaking for 18 minutes the other day on topics that were not relevant to the matter. Not relevant to the matter. And we let her speak because out of courtesy. But if there's an expectation that you have a limited amount of time, it allows the other people in the room to speak. So the 3-minute limit is a courtesy for the public to show respect to one another. Now, the 10-minute limit for the commissioners, and Robert's rules is cited, we do not abide by Robert's rules. Robert's rules was just violated a moment ago when the commissioner is supposed to recognize the other commissioners. We don't enforce that out of courtesy to one another. So if we're not going to do this, I suggest that we strictly abide by Robert's rules and limit speaking to 2 times on every matter, which is in Robert's rules, and limit it to 10 minutes. So this is actually much more flexible than Robert's rules. But the intent of this, which I wrote the first draft and it's been reviewed, was to show to the public what the expectations were, what the process is, and to have commissioners show discipline and respect to one another, which right now is a room for improvement, because right now we do not have that discipline. People are talking over one another, they're asking questions, they're revisiting issues. They're asking information that is clearly presented, and a comment was made that we don't have engineers on staff. We do have engineers on staff. We have licensed professionals on staff. And those questions can be asked before. And those licensed professionals in many cases are the ones who grant the permits. So the person reviewing the technical matters are the ones who grant the permits. So we as commissioners have ample opportunity to ask those questions. And I just ask my commissioners, if we don't formally abide by this, we abide by respect to one another to ask the licensed professionals who are on staff the questions beforehand and not use the meeting to educate oneself. It's important to educate oneself, but the meeting is not the place to do that. So I think Chairman's suggestion to make this unanimous, it's well-intended and it's positive and it's constructive. And if there's not consensus, I understand, we wouldn't formally adopt this.
I'm just gonna,
I mean, we can grab that if you need it, but I don't.
all right, I mean, why don't, we're gonna table this for now, I think, unless others oppose that. Again, I disagree with the objections that were noted. I think they're not fairly representative of what the guidelines are, and in fact, a little contradictory in themselves. If the idea is that, as expressed by some, that I already have this authority, that I can do a better job with the public and with ourselves, with the commission questions, then I will do a better job at it. I'm telling the commission and the public, I guess, that at least from my perspective as chair, being the only person been on chair, that I actually think these guidelines would help me better than more of a less defined criteria that has been proposed so far. Yeah, but I've heard suggestions about making these more efficient, putting time limits on it. Nothing's in writing, it's hard to enforce. Hard for me to force back to people on that. When I do make decisions to keep the process moving, because either a commissioner's question is inappropriate or a time waste, or the public member has gone at 5 minutes, and I try and move things forward. I get pushback either from the commission or the public. It's hard for me, sitting here on an island, so to speak, to do this without having at least something to push to point back to. So we'll move forward without it for now, keep it in the background should the need arise. But just be as we've said, meeting once a week, times a meeting twice a week. Curfew's at 10, which we may not be able to abide by if we have with all this influx. So if it's 10 o'clock and everybody's asking to stay an extra half hour to finish something, we need to wait, we need to have another meeting, make it 2 times a week. Not only just, we have deadlines we need to meet. And I'll just say, I've talked to staff about timing with scheduling and stuff. And I would urge you, Commissioner Braun, to reach out to the staff about this. You say that we're not scheduling them right. And I've talked to staff and I've reviewed things with them. And I don't, you should really talk to them first, I think. Anytime you put things off with this commission, we always take a little longer than we probably should otherwise. Pushing things off is only going to cause a problem later when we're up against a statutory deadline. So let's leave it there. I think we should leave it there and get to the hearing. I think we should leave it there because I think at this point, we're going to table it, right? So can I have a motion to table, please? Moved.
I'd like a point of order though. We'll continue. I just wanted to.
Thank you. We'll move by Commissioner Ford, seconded by Commissioner Porcillo. All in favor, say aye. Oh, it passes unanimously. Okay. Moving on, we are going back, call this for the continuation, public hearing application of 441 Post Road LLC to amend section 10.4 of the zoning regulations, Vine Resident District, section 10.3 sub 3, 10.4 sub 3 to allow hotel and resident use and residential density of 40 units per acre on parcels of 6 acres with at least 250 street or frontage on the post road abutting a tidal wetland, along with other ancillary design requirements. 441 Post Road Special Permit, section 24 and 25, and coastal site plan application of 441 Post Road LLC pertain to a mixed-use hotel and residential development in the design residence district. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Again, Adam Blank, attorney for the applicant. Again, as we left off the last meeting, roadmap here, Attorney Brayman's going to speak for about 15 minutes or so. That will end our sort of formal presentation. We'll spend only about 3 or 4 minutes trying to respond to a couple of the questions that came up from you folks at the last meeting. But by and large, we're hoping it with permission will reserve and answer all of those questions and the public questions on rebuttal at the end to give the public opportunity to speak tonight.
Will you plan on going through the regulation amendments?
So Lenny's going to cover the reg amendment, POCD, the policy portion of
That's fine.
the
Thank you.
regulation. And I know last time, Matt Edwardson, who's one of the principals at Spinnaker, owner of the property, wasn't able to be with us. He's here today, lives just down the street here in Fairfield. With that, I'll kick it over to Lenny.
Hey, Attorney, is your traffic consultant here or online?
He is online. We
Okay.
did have some responses. That's actually about the 3 or 4 minutes I said are about traffic. We were going to respond to some of the questions after Lenny presents and then conclude.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we were told the engineer would be here also. Is the engineer here to ask? I have a couple of follow-ups.
Engineers here, the architects are here. We've got our whole team is here. But we're not planning on having them do full presentations. But if there's questions that you need answered tonight, they're here.
I have a few questions, not too many.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, staff, members of the public. My name is Lenny Brayman. Along with the rest of our team, I represent the applicant. I'm pleased to be before you, and we do want to be respectful of your time. I also want to be respectful of the public's time, their opportunity to hear. This project has many benefits for the town of Fairfield. If you could go to the next slide, we believe it's a win-win compared to current conditions. For example, number one, there currently exists no public access to Turney Creek, the tidally influenced creek that abuts the property and discharges to the Ash Creek tidal estuary. The applicant proposes to create a public pedestrian path along Ash Creek in the back of the property to allow the public to view and enjoy that area, and interact with it, which DEEP is in favor of, as they noted in their comments on the application. Number two, the project will offer pedestrian safety enhancements with the creation of all new sidewalks along the post road and the reduction of curb cuts at the property from 3 to 2. Number three, state-of-the-art stormwater management system will be created, including underground detention structures, bioswales, permeable surfaces, sediment traps, which will effectively manage and treat runoff from the property. Whereas currently, there is no stormwater treatment, and you saw the video of the sheet flow directly from the parking lot at the tidal wetlands and the creek. By ensuring that stormwater runoff is thoroughly treated before it is discharged into the creek, the system will improve water quality in both the adjacent wetlands and the estuary. And that's something that DEEP also commented positively and commended the applicant for in its comments. Number four, a riparian buffer will be established along Turney Creek, and it will be planted with native species that will enhance water quality. This buffer will function as a natural filter for stormwater runoff, stabilize the soil, and it'll provide valuable habitat for local wildlife. It will also serve as a protective barrier for the tidal wetlands, minimizing the potential impacts both from destruction, but also from long-term post-development. Number 5, the project is expected to generate substantial jobs and revenue for the town. In addition to a minimum of 50 to 75 temporary jobs created by the construction itself, the applicant anticipates the creation of 30 to 35 permanent positions to serve the hotel and the apartment building. And additionally, property tax revenue is anticipated to increase from roughly $150,000 annually, currently, to 1.5 million in property taxes or more. Number 6, while the existing site has a generous amount of lawn, landscaping at the site is sparse and views of the existing hotel are direct, especially in the wintertime. A comprehensive landscape plan is proposed with a multitude of new trees, shrubs, perennials, and annuals that will complement the charm of the proposed new New England style inn and enhance the streetscape, which is currently lacking. If you could move to the next slide. So we're all aware of the need for more affordable housing options in Fairfield, and there's been a lot of conversation on that for years, but obviously more so now. And that need is an issue that this project also seeks to remedy. So 12% of the development's 250 apartment units, 30 units, are designated as affordable units to those households earning only 80% of area median income. These 30 new affordable units added to the town's housing stock. And not only will they allow people a place to live who currently are having trouble finding a place to live in our town, who work in our town, but they will be helpful in terms of the town's ability to obtain a future 8-30G moratorium. The current moratorium will be for a period of 4 years, and then a subsequent 5-year moratorium will take measured progress toward creating additional affordable housing in Fairfield during the 4-year period in order to qualify for the 5-year moratorium. And this project would create needed affordable housing and also provide valuable points for that second moratorium. In addition to helping provide more housing in Fairfield, which is needed, this project will contribute to the town's economic development. Among other things, it will create a world-class hotel for which there's a demonstrated need. And it'll attract residents and guests who will patronize local businesses, all while preserving the classic circle diner on the site that my family enjoys, among many others. So we've presented to the Affordable Housing Committee, as you can see in the slide, and they have communicated their support for this application. The Affordable Housing Committee said, obviously, there's a well-documented need for more affordable housing here. And given its location on the post road, the site is well suited for this type of mixed-use development. The committee expressed its preference also for the mixed-use concept to include a hotel use for the site. And notes that it's important for the town to provide reasonable development alternatives that demonstrate good planning and design principles while meeting community needs. Additionally, the Affordable Housing Committee praised the design, which you've had an opportunity to experience for yourself, and supports the application. Move on to the next slide. So obviously, on a text change, we have to convince this commission that the proposed text change is consistent with the town's POCD. We take that responsibility very seriously. This is exactly the type of development that both the operative existing POCD and the new draft POCD that you're considering supports. First of all, the 2016 POCD, which is the one in effect now, places the property in the Holland Hill Grassmere planning area boundary. And the policy section for that planning area provides the following points. Number 1, revitalization and redevelopment along the post road is needed to upgrade visual quality and promote reinvestment in this area. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Second, mixed-use commercial and residential development should be encouraged in existing commercial zone sections. Now, that's very much consistent with what the Affordable Housing Committee said as well, that you just saw. But our project furthers these policies, and the POCD also, 2016 POCD, also notes a desire to continue open space systems along rivers, streams, and the shore, including provision for expanded public access. That's another public good that we are providing with this proposed project. In terms of the August 2024 draft POCD, which is under consideration, our project supports those policies as well. The August 24 draft identifies as an overarching priority, achieve grand list growth by promoting and supporting walkable, mixed-use corridors to not only supply necessary new housing choices, but also invigorate existing commercial properties. Okay, so grow the grand list through smart development that provides additional housing options for people who want to live here, and also at the same time, hopefully invigorates existing commercial properties, like the redeveloped hotel that we're proposing, like the Circle Diner. The POCD draft further notes that there is strong demand, and this can't be denied. There is strong demand for multifamily housing that will expand the market of people who can find a place to live in Fairfield. Recent graduates, newly married couples, young professionals, downsizing baby boomers. By providing more opportunities for multifamily housing, the town will expand its consumer base, which in turn can help drive demand for higher and better uses of its commercial properties. This is the essence of doing well by doing good. Now, this property is in the Design Residence District, or DRD. And its current uses, and we discussed this a bit during the pre-application, the current uses of the property are pre-existing non-conforming, they're grandfathered. So the hotel, the restaurant, they're not currently permitted uses in the DRD. That was one of the animating principles behind the text change here. Obviously, to do essentially anything with this site of a significant nature, you need to change the regulations. If you want to maintain a hotel and a restaurant. Broadly speaking, the proposed regulation that we've proposed to you has been narrowly drafted so that its applicability within the Design Residence District is limited. Under the proposed regulation, these are sort of the highlights of it. I'm happy to go through any portion of the text change that you'd like to discuss, but the highlights are on properties of at least 6 acres with substantial frontage on the post road, 250 feet of frontage. And on a tidal wetland, a mixed-use development consisting of multifamily, hotel, and restaurant uses are permitted by special permit with a residential density of 40 units per acre and heights not to exceed 4 stories. Additional modifications are proposed in our text change related to front setbacks, not other setbacks, just front setbacks to bring that, again, the development close to the post road to create that streetscape, which is lacking. And floor area coverage and parking. In terms of the 10 points on this slide of issues that the text change addresses. Obviously, we have the limitations on what kind of property can take advantage of this text change. Number 2, uses. We discussed the changes in density and the permitted uses. 3, the 12% of dwelling units created shall be BMR at 80% of area median income. 4, the height limitation, 4 stories or 50 feet, provided that up to 5 feet of additional height is allowed for architectural features, including but not limited to mechanical screening. Number 5, a height limitation of only 3 stories or 34 feet for any building located within 85 feet of a historic district. Now, there's a lot of numbers there, but the intent was to assure the neighbors in the Old Post Road Historic District, the Old Post Historic District, that we are not going to build higher than the existing Circle Diner within 85 feet of that historic district. So we wrote that affirmatively into the text change to address a concern that we've heard about the historic district. Setbacks. Again, there's been concern about setbacks. The only setback that we're changing from the existing regulations is that the development can be closer to the street. And that excludes porches and decks, which can protrude into the front setback. Lot coverage of 40%. Must provide public access for viewing of tidal wetland. Again, something that we affirmatively proposed in our regulation. And then parking, there's been some commentary about parking, but we are proposing essentially what the parking requirements are as of right for instance, the existing Circle Hotel and Diner, which is governed by section 28.611 of the regulations. And for the apartments, we're proposing something we think is quite reasonable within what this commission has often approved, which is 1 space per bedroom or 1 spaces per household. If you look at the next slide, we also were pleased to receive positive feedback from the Economic Development Commission that enthusiastically supports the application. Also noted this site is well suited for this type of mixed use development. Strong preference for a mixed use concept rather than single use. And praises the major investment in the community that would yield additional tax revenue, additional housing options, contributing positively to the community. And of course, anybody who's tried to get hotel rooms in Fairfield for family or friends, they know that they're at a premium. The existing Circle Hotel is often full during a peak event such as university graduations. If you could turn to the special permit criteria and the next section. Before we address the special permit criteria, I did want to talk about this commission's guidelines for when you approve a text change. And you've gone through those factors before in a number of applications just recently, so they're probably foremost in your mind. Number one, you sometimes say, well, is the proposal consistent with the plan of conservation and development? That's the first touchstone, right? And it's eminently consistent with the POCD here. Not only the existing POCD, but the draft one. And we've just discussed the ways in which this development exemplifies certain things we're trying to get from the POCD. Number two, does time, experience, and responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for proposed development? Yes, for the reasons that I've just stated in terms of all the benefits that this project proposes for the town. And number three, has it been demonstrated that the proposal is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town? Well, again, this entire presentation is geared at bringing home to this commission how this project will further the general health, welfare, and safety of the town and be a win-win. The considerations for a special permit, obviously, we're seeking a text change, special permit, and a CAM approval. For a special permit, similarly, the commission looks at whether the development shown on the site and architectural plans is of such characters to harmonize with the neighborhood, to accomplish a transition in character between areas of unlike character, to protect property values in the neighborhood, and preserve and enhance the appearance and beauty of the community and avoid undue traffic congestion. So with respect to the first factor, the development will harmonize with the neighborhood by retaining the existing diner, enhancing and modernizing the existing hotel, and adding much needed housing, including affordable housing, creating public access to Ash Creek, helping preserve tidal wetlands, improving pedestrian safety, improving drainage, and beautifying the streetscape and neighborhood with attractive landscaping and a beautiful design. So that's the first factor. Second, the project will appropriately transition between surrounding heavy commercial uses on the busy Post Road here and the surrounding residential neighborhood. A mixed use project that blends the diner, the redesigned hotel, the new apartments, and the commercial uses, medical office uses, restaurants, businesses, and yes, the residential communities. the single-family homes that are our neighbors. Third, the project will protect property values in the neighborhood by refreshing the existing tired hotel and creating an inviting, beautiful gateway to Fairfield with a dynamic pedestrian plaza and surrounding property values also stand to be enhanced by the many other improvements to the site and neighborhood that we've discussed, such as the stormwater improvement, public access to the wetlands, and again, the beautiful design that you had the opportunity to see for yourselves. We do really, and I think our architect, Seelan, made this clear. We do really see this as a gateway project when you're entering Fairfield from the Bridgeport side. We want this to exemplify everything that is good about Fairfield. And fourth, as discussed in the forthcoming, traffic analysis, the project is not going to create undue traffic. We have obviously one of the busiest roads here, but the incremental additional traffic that we are adding at this site is not going to significantly diminish the levels of service. You saw that, I heard that from the traffic expert. It in fact will improve walkability and pedestrian traffic safety by cutting down from 3 curb cuts to 2. And it will complement the other ongoing traffic improvements that are underway with respect to the Post Road Circle or are in process with state's longer term plan. If you look at the next slide, I already touched on Deep's comments. I don't want to belabor that point, but Deep takes a hard look at projects in or near tidal wetlands or near the coast, and they are not shy about expressing reservations. They commended the applicant for the stormwater management where there is none, and they appreciate the passive recreational access to the tidal wetlands and the water here, rather than opening up to more intensive recreational use, such as boating, which the Deep doesn't feel is warranted. The Deep did have some feedback on our text change, which I addressed briefly last time. And through staff, we did submit language that the commission can consider if they consider Deep's request to even further narrow the language of the text to make it applicable only to properties that, like our site, have dry access from floodways and do not have any development proposed, any sleeping rooms or dwelling unit proposed in flood zone. That's up to this commission, and the applicant is certainly fine with any such limitation. Now, of course, you're going to hear opposition tonight from neighbors who are against the redevelopment of this property. But let's be mindful, not all neighbors oppose this project. There is a large swath of the community that has expressed support. And if you just look at some of the support that we've received, we had a petition, the Friends of the Circle Hotel petition, which got over 150 signatures and counting. Got 65 plus signatures on a handwritten petition that was circulated. We received at least 27 letters in support. And I'm just going quickly here because it's not so easy to read, but it is in your PowerPoints that are printed out. These are just a few of the letters in support that we've received. And we've gone to great lengths to meet with neighbors individually and through group meetings, both before we filed the application and since filing. And it's an ongoing dialogue. We've attempted to address questions that are commonly asked about the project publicly on our website. We've submitted a copy of those frequently asked questions and the answers, the responses to you, and hopefully that has answered some of the questions that you may have had. And we've made a number of changes to the application since the inception of the project for the benefit of neighbors at their request. Just go through a few of them. We scaled back substantially from what could potentially have been done. We tried to draw something up that was more in scale with the neighborhood, but still pencils out as a viable development option. We retained the architecture firm of Byfield that has experience not only at the Anchorage in Fairfield, but a lot of different experience creating tasteful, world-class New England in style development. And we redesigned the upper level at the request of the neighbors to step back the top floor by 5 feet. That step back has even more impact visually because of the angles at which you're looking at the building. So you really, and the architects have described this better than I could, but we're really trying to minimize the impact of that top story visually. We originally proposed large trees along our property line at Shoreham and 7 to 8 feet trees, and we increased them at the request of neighbors and through the dialogue process to plantings of 10 to 11 feet. Typically, these will grow to 18 to 24 inches per year. In summary, this development, obviously, as I've said, and as you've heard on different ways, will revitalize a highly visible stretch of the Post Road. It'll create new public access to tidal wetlands. It'll provide a world-class hotel. It'll provide housing options for, as the draft POCD notes, recent graduates, newly married couples, young professionals, and downsizing baby boomers. And it will provide the town with much needed affordable housing and much needed points toward a future of the moratorium, all in a well-designed mixed-use project that complements the neighborhood. And now I'd like to turn it back to Adam.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
Did DEP, did they do a site walk or a site visit? Or was it just a letter?
Did Deep visit the site? Not to our knowledge.
Question.
And then let me,
Good. Well, let me recognize people first, but go ahead, Commissioner.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, come in, Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, in the petition, what vicinity was that petition conducted and
The
65 people signed or?
the petition, I think, was townwide.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for now, thank you.
Commissioner Braun.
Hi, Lenny.
How are you, Commissioner? Good to see you.
I'll talk loud. This is mixed use, but I don't think there's any mixed use on the site. The hotel does not have a restaurant or retail in the hotel, right? Or does it? I don't recall you saying that.
I mean, I think that would have to do with the ultimate program of the hotel. But I think the mixed use aspect of it, even if the hotel doesn't end up having retail or what have you, there's already mixed use by virtue of the dwelling units, the hotel and the existing diner. What, in terms of the hotel having, other amenities in it, that's part of the program for the ownership. I don't know if you have comments on that.
The diner's on a different parcel that's not included in this project though, right? Like, there's no work being done on the diner property, is there?
The diner is not going to change as a result of this project, but I believe it's
But that's a different property address, isn't it, the diner?
It's a single parcel.
It's the same parcel.
Oh, it's the same parcel plan.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. So you're including the diner, and then about the diner, that'll probably be better directed to the traffic person, but I was concerned about access to the diner, because when you get rid of one entry point, it seems as though it might be difficult to get to the diner from the exterior roads, and the interior road didn't look like you could drive all the way to the diner on the interior road.
You can.
You can drive right through, but people from the outside world won't go in the main entrance of the hotel to go to the diner. They'll go on the other road to go to the diner. My concern is that the diner might cease to exist. And therefore you wouldn't have that mixed use component.
I think it's our expectation that the diner will actually do significantly better with 250, 275 residences and a bigger, fuller hotel. Should be quite helpful for the diner.
And I did not to interrupt you,
Yeah.
Commissioner, but Sealand Pother, our architect, mentioned that they're hoping to have a synergy between the dwelling units and the hotel and the diner.
Thank you for that. And is this spot zoning? I'm asking that as attorney to attorney. I feel it is spot zoning. There's only one parcel that could possibly relate. I don't even think the Exide property would relate because the wetlands are gone.
So not to get too wonky,
Yeah.
but I don't believe that there's any legal prohibition on a text change that has, particular appeal to single property. I believe that it is theoretically possible for other sites to qualify for this, to have this text change apply, but it would have to be through assemblage of different parcels.
It would have to be on the Mill River or Ash Creek. There's no other place where there could be tidal wetlands.
And as you know, applicants often get pressure, rightly so, to limit the applicability of a text change such as deep, so that it doesn't create too much of a precedent for other unintended consequences.
I hear you. Also, my concern is, I agree with you that this is a site for a mixed-use development with an attractive renovated hotel or replacement hotel. The issue is always scale, okay? And I'm always worried about the environment. So, that might be a question better directed to the engineer. I did have a couple follow-up questions. If you relocated this, and my thought last time was that the diner maybe was going to disappear at some point. If the whole project could move over, it could be farther away from the houses and farther away from the wetland. But somebody answered that and said, we considered that and we decided not to do it. So the diner is staying.
So I think in this plan, the diner stays and just, I know it doesn't look that way. We have graphics, we may be able to pull out, maybe not, but the diner is the closest structure to the creek. So moving things to the diner moves development closer to the creek, which we've heard the most concern of people that don't want that. So I think creating further development closer to the creek where the diner was would present some concerns in
I
and
guess
of
it would have to
itself.
be reconfigured. Regarding the criteria, the POCD that exists is the only one that we can consider, as I'm sure you're aware of that. We can't consider something that doesn't, we can only have one POCD at the time. There's one that is in draft form that has not been adopted. It's not due to be adopted till 2026. So the only one we can consider is that one.
You are absolutely correct, Commissioner. The only thing I'd add is that if the new POCD is adopted during the pendency of this application, then that would apply. So we're noting that we comply with that as well.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Collins is online. I think you had a question.
Yeah, I was in reference to the diner, was the diner's lease a factor on preserving it?
I can't hear him. I'm sorry.
I
I think I know what you're asking, Commissioner Collins. Could you repeat that?
Was the diner's lease a factor on preserving it?
The lease, a factor.
It's a factor in preserving it.
I'm sure that it is. It's a viable business and if it's there, and it can be preserved, they'd like to preserve it.
But
And I guess I don't know if that exactly answers your question. I guess my answer is
Well,
more along the lines of if there
my
was no
concern is-
lease and it wasn't there, I'm not sure we proposed to put the diner there, but it is there and it's operational and it pays rent every month. So
And it's enjoyed by many.
how long is that lease for a number of years?
I don't know the lease term off the top of my head.
There are a number of years left on the lease, Commissioner.
Roughly?
They said they don't know, so.
It's.
I don't want to speculate.
I think it's roughly 10 years. I'm not sure if it's 5 with the renewal for about 5 more, but it's somewhere in that ballpark.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Levy.
Just one question. The plan proposes closing one of the entries on the post road, which is often used for the diner. The other entry is off of the old post road. Will steps be taken so that the public is aware that they can reach the diner from the post road without having to cut through Belmont and then to the old post road to get to the diner? What steps will be taken to make that known?
I think that's a two-part answer. Part of it, I might defer to our traffic consultant in terms of flow, on-site and off-site. But I think, through signage and other means, obviously the ownership wants the diner to succeed and doesn't want people cutting through residential neighborhoods inefficiently to get to the diner. That's not in their interest either. So I think through signage and through program, I think that could be accomplished. But I would defer to the traffic expert on, the mechanics of on-site and off-site flow of traffic.
Thank you.
Commissioner Braun.
A follow-up question on working with neighbors. I understand there've been some public information sessions. I know there's a group called Ash Creek Conservation Association. Do you know, and this might be better for one of your consultants, but you know, if they took into account, because one of the items that's in here is a wildlife restoration expert. And he had a series of 7 recommendations, and this goes to the health, safety, general welfare aspect criteria of the special permit. Because environmental concerns are considered part of that, as you know. So there's a report dated January 15th by Dr. Robinson, or to a Dr. Robinson, from a company called One Nature LLC. And he also references a different number of listed species than what the consultant did. So maybe this is a question for the consultant.
So I think there's a two-part answer there, Commissioner, and I'm glad you brought that up. I did read that letter from the Ash Creek Conservation Association with interest. Number one, I think it's interesting to note that they are very much in favor of our proposal for passive recreation and passive viewing of the tidal wetland, and they thought that was a great idea. They did have some suggestions for, even greater protection of the wetlands and species. The species that they noted, I thought, at least one of them was the heron that our expert did discuss, and said that there would be no negative impact on the nesting of that heron from our development. There was another species I recall that was discussed at the last hearing that we also had no reason to believe that they would they would find habitat here in the first place, just because of the topography. But I'm not aware of, I believe that our consultant, he can speak to this himself, considered the relevant database.
Okay, because they
The
had
relevant
6
species.
items or 7, and he mentioned 2, and I think your consultant mentioned mudwort as being invasive, but that's listed here as one of the listed plant species that is a species of special concern. So maybe this is better for the consultant, this granular detail.
Probably, I
Okay.
know that there are invasive species here that we
Yeah.
tend to remove
Yeah.
in a sensitive way. There are also native species that we want to plant,
Yeah,
and there are native species that we're going to protect.
and when your consultant does talk, perhaps he could show that, because sometimes when you ask for the natural diversity database from the DEP, they give you ask for an octagon or an outline of where it's gonna be. So I could see it on the one Ash Creek has, but I don't know if they use the same one, because why would you only get 2 and they got 7 or 6 species,
But
Why would there be different?
Without having the Ash Creek
Yeah.
letter in front of me,
Yeah.
I can't speak
Okay.
directly to that, but I know that we have considered that letter in particular, and we have
Okay.
thoughts
Okay,
on
I'll
it.
wait for the consultant. Thank you.
Mr. Harrison.
I have a question. I was doing the FAQ and it said the development wouldn't have any adverse effect with noise to the neighborhood. Just kind of springboarding off that, will there be any rental facilities available at the hotel, like wedding reception areas or
No,
performances?
there's no space for receptions. And now, is there maybe, and I don't, maybe Sealand might be able to speak to it, is there maybe a meeting room or something like of that incredibly small scale
What do they have now?
space? There probably is, but there's not space for significant events.
Or a reception at the pool? I don't know, something like that.
Have him come up,
Should I come up?
please.
Thank you.
Questions about the residential?
I think speaking of.
Do you want me to? or get the
Yeah,
question?
please.
I was just wondering if there are any kind of reception hall, banquet hall in the hotel facility or on the parcel land?
I'm Sion Belter, architecture of the record. At the moment, we've left about, I think it's about 9,000 square foot, I stand to be corrected, open at the lower floor. We anticipate that's back of house for the hotel lobby, reception. Also could be a place for a bar, restaurant. We haven't that yet.
Thanks for coming up.
Commissioner Randolph.
Hold on, Sealand, before you run.
Follow-up question. Looking at the site plan on page 22.
Excuse me, can you speak up a little?
I'm looking
Sorry.
at the site plan on page 22. And I don't see, are there any generators or point sources of noise to follow up with the noise question?
So this particular project doesn't need a generator, so we don't have one planned right now. It's only a code-related item and this building doesn't.
And so the HVAC units are distributed. Is there a central chiller for this project?
No, the way that we normally do these, the residential portion is split units. So they're individual, about 3 foot by 2 foot units to serve each dwelling unit, and they're grouped along the edge of the unit over the corridor or close to the garage in that case, in the plan that you're looking at. So away from the edge, away from the front edge of the building towards the back edge.
And so more broadly, are there any large pieces of equipment that would generate noise other than small package unit for the split systems?
No, it's currently planned.
Thank you.
So I was in Bridgeport by the courthouse and I saw the old Holiday Inn got it's now apartment buildings there. The way I read these regulations is if the hotel, for whatever reason, doesn't do well, you can't make that switch over to apartments from the hotel, correct?
Yeah, there's the density wouldn't allow it.
Okay. That's my reading of it too, and I'm not hoping that on you, it's just, that was a thought when I was in Bridgeport.
Yeah, the maximum density under the text change is the density that we're seeking for the proposed apartments, the 250.
And the hotel is part of that mixed use, it is a commercial use.
Yes.
I thought I heard reference earlier that it's more residential and that the diner was only the commercial part and that didn't make sense to me. If I misheard, I'm sorry. You also had made an application for an 830G for this project, for this site, excuse me. Now, obviously with the moratorium, I could understand that. Hypothetically, if this regs in the project is approved, what would happen? What do you have an idea what would happen with that application?
Yeah, so if this application is approved and there's no appeal filed, we would withdraw the 8-30G application and it wouldn't go forward. If the application's approved and there's an appeal filed, we won't know for sure that it's approved, so we'd have to let the 8-30G play out as well. But this is certainly the preferred approach.
I guess I should just ask that more targeted. This is the preferred point for, project for you guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Commissioner Harrison.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually just follow up on the 830G application because I've heard the word vision a lot in this, and the vision is to have this great mixed use area, which is beautiful, but you also have the dual application with 478 units versus 250. So is your vision, which vision are we going with?
Well, this is the vision, but
Okay.
this, we can't just say, we're building it, right? We're here asking for your permission and you might say no. And so if you say no to that, you gotta have a backup plan.
Okay.
And so that's the backup plan. It's not what we want, but it's the backup plan.
Thank you. Can you clarify?
Commissioner Braun.
This came up in another matter that we heard about the electric vehicle charging stations. Where are they located in the garage? Because this whole garage is inside the building, right? It only has one exterior entrance, and I don't know how many layers the garage is or how many levels, but usually they have a certain number of EV charging hookups, that you have to set it up now, even though nobody's using them yet. So the question is, are they close to the entryway? There's only one entryway, then you go up inside the building, right?
Yeah, Sealand, do we have a location on
Safety-
the?
It was a safety issue that came up with
I thought they were outside.
They're outside? How many there's 65 outdoor spaces, so where are the EV ones then?
If we have the site plan, you can see them on the site plan in your package.
She's running it, yeah.
Okay.
I have the site plan here, but I don't know.
The Connecticut statute is to be
10%.
10%, you have to be, have the infrastructure for 10%. We usually provide 2%, get ready first, day one. Is it on the landscape plan?
Between the
now?
diner and the,
Yeah, so, I mean, I'll
Just
just.
point that out.
Between the diner and the building, that parking field between the
Are there
diner.
The diner parking spaces or?
No, there's a row of parking spaces right outside the building, here on the right hand side of it. Right there.
And how many EV spaces then?
Page 22.
10% of the total number on the outside and on the inside?
I was citing the requirements from the state. I'm not sure how many exactly on site. We can count them and get them back to you.
With your cursor,
right there.
excuse me, with your cursor, I'm sorry, Attorney.
That's okay. Emma Dignati.
Thank you. Can you just highlight that with the cursor, please?
Yes, I'm circling the two EV charging stations.
Thank you.
Or it says EV.
Those are quads, four per.
Those are quads. When landscape architect is telling us his
I'm
quads.
sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Every one of those stations services 4 cars.
Okay. And we know what they are. Okay,
Just.
okay. So they're not next to the building.
Got it, Jim. Yeah.
There's, so although there are sprinkler systems now set up to handle the protection of, if you're alluding to, for EV stations and cars, but keep them away from the building until that's part of code, which it isn't right now.
I'm sorry. I'm a little hard of hearing. Could you just repeat what
So
you?
you were alluding to the idea that cars inside a parking garage.
Yes.
Is potentially hazardous.
They're outside.
They're outside, so that's what we're doing right now, but there's a change coming in the code that allows for heavier sprinklers inside a building that will address that, but have that
Well, I'm
right.
glad they're outside because I don't trust water to get rid of EV fire.
Water is a mixture of waters and blankets, it's coming.
Commissioner Corsilla.
I would just point to the fact that the commission recently, last meeting or the meeting before, amended the design residence district to increase the affordability requirement. That is not a requirement for this application, but between now and when the applicant comes back for rebuttal, I would request that you think about if there is a way you could get closer to the 15% that we just amended the requirement to. Again, while not required, it's a request to consider that.
Yeah, and that was, if you can recall, that was something we did in our executive session. So, and that would, I think, be something we would consider as well. 'Cause I think that's the thought of this commission townwide for certain parts. So, did you have a question? Well, let me just, the other thing I would,
If memory serves,
Go
it's
ahead.
also half at 60% and half at 80%.
I don't recall off the top of my head.
We'll have to check.
Yeah. The only other thought I have is we did pass that DRD, so I'm not, although we're not in a residential zone, are we?
The underlying zone.
Yeah.
Residential.
So maybe to the extent that that is considered, I don't know how that would shake out with the 6 acres off the top of my head, but we did pass that recently as an alternative to, well, at least an 830G, but an alternative to this as well. So I know that's late in the game for you guys, but still. Commissioner Ford.
Quickly, someone brought up the concurrent 8-30G application. How many units is proposed in that application, do you know?
That's 475.
475 units, and what's the total units proposed here? Just
What is it, 275 and 110? 275?
250.
250, apologies, 250, and then 110 on the hotel.
it's 360 versus 475. Okay,
Yeah, although I will say that typically the hotel room sizes are
smaller footprint, I understand, yes, but I just in total, but
Sure.
yeah, so the 475 units is your backup plan.
Correct.
Commissioner Braun.
This is a question probably for the engineer. It has to do with the test pits.
Probably for the engineer.
Well, let's,
I know you're
why
smart.
don't we do this? Because I know you had questions for there was things you want to talk about with the traffic engineer, right? Was there- or
Yeah,
did-
so
or did I miss
we've
that?
got like 2 minutes or 3 minutes left of what we have, and then
Sorry.
if you guys want to keep following questions,
No,
that's
why don't
fine, but if
we
we want to let the public go, we're
finish-
cool with that
Finish your
too.
presentation, because I think there was some miscellaneous traffic stuff. And I think Commissioner Braun had questions for the engineer, so we'll bring him up after you guys.
Sure. Okay, so just a couple of quick points. So one, I think there was a question about the distance to Hartford Healthcare. And I think it's 250 feet to the south lobby and it's 330 feet to the main lobby. And then our traffic engineer, we're not sure we're hoping the reception's pretty good for him online. We did submit, and it's part of the record, updated letter from him that answered what we thought were your questions that were raised last week. In just sort of summarizing that it's all in, his letter. I'm just sort of rephrasing it, but we did submit the trip generation. There's some questions about trip generation, and the ITE numbers, that he used. Those are the industry standard. It's what OSTA and the CT DOT requires and is accepted by. Those standards ask you to provide the numbers based on a typical day, not abnormally high day. There were some questions about what happens on abnormally high days. So the trip numbers are based on your typical traffic, not abnormal traffic. The site, it's got an 80-room hotel on it currently. That does sell out on pretty much every big weekend already. So we have 110 rooms proposed. That's 30 more. Yes, that's going to be a few more cars. But we're not going from 0 to 110. We're going from 80 to 110. So we think that's a small increase. The ITE rates, like how do they figure out how much traffic's coming from a hotel? It's based on 80%, 82% occupancy on a motel and 86% full on a hotel. So the numbers that are used as our sort of baseline numbers are coming from a relatively full hotel, not from some random empty hotel that understates the traffic. There were questions about whether the data that we got for our traffic counts was coming at the right time of the year or was appropriate to use. We used, as you heard from the traffic engineer, June 2024 traffic counts that came from DOT, and we had traffic counts taken on our own site in July of 2024. Those were, again, coordinated with Connecticut DOT that confirmed that those were an appropriate period of time to use. And again, part of why we're asking them and they're saying it's appropriate is because if we get your approval, we go to them next and they have to approve the traffic as well. That's through the OSTA approval process. There was a question about whether there are different grades of F in traffic. There's not. An F is an F. That doesn't mean that the delay is the same on all Fs, right? So, and yes, there will be more of a delay. We've indicated it's about 48 seconds more of a delay at the one turning movement that's an F. That is, again, captured on site. That is a delay of people on our site trying to get off the site. And while we're saying it's a 48-second delay, and that's what the traffic numbers show, and I don't think you'll hear anybody say definitively that's not the right number. The way these models work, when you get to the level of service of F, they start to be very unreliable at predicting just how much the additional delay will be more or less. In fact, I just had a project where it was saying, I think it was saying it was going to be a 10-minute delay. And it wasn't going to be a 10-minute delay. It was going to be a delay, but it wasn't going to be a 10-minute delay. They just get kind of wonky. Then finally, I can just skip to the last. There were some questions about, we had some numbers about how much traffic is on the roadway network already on a daily basis, but we were giving you peak hour numbers for our site and you were kind of had apples to orange trying to make heads or tails of it. But as you can see from this table from Neil Olinsky, the traffic engineer, our traffic from our site will represent 1% of the peak hour traffic on Post Road, Route 130 on the east of the site. That's both the weekday morning and afternoon. And on the west, in the morning, it's 4%, and in the afternoon, it's 4%. So we'll be 4% of the traffic on the roadway in one direction and 1% on the other. And I think then there was some questions about traffic, and this is my last one, some questions about traffic safety. Again, I think one of the concerns is that the road's not the safest road currently. And all of the data says by eliminating curb cuts, which we're doing, that increases traffic safety. Also by pushing the buildings up on the street, it has sort of a more of a presence there with a better streetscape with the sidewalk. It actually slows motorists down and it increases traffic safety. So we do think that that obviously there's going to be a little bit more traffic from this, for sure, there has to be. But from a traffic safety perspective, that we're actually going to make it safer. It may be a little bit more traffic, but it will be safer. that's all that I have. Again, we'll answer your questions. We'd love for you to be able to get the public to talk tonight. And we're definitely coming back for a rebuttal in any event, and we'll be able to answer everything then. So that, other than saving some time for rebuttal, that's the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Braun, any other questions for the engineer? Do you want to save it for rebuttal or do you want to ask?
I'd rather do it now. I think that would make more sense because it's questions I had from last time.
And this is going to be between public comments, so if you can just keep them targeted, please.
And I have a question here in from the Zoom session for the engineer.
Oh, well, I think that was a member of the public. Ma'am, we're
Correct.
going to be turning to the public in a second, so.
Sure, I'll wait.
Go ahead, Commissioner Braun.
Could you just identify yourself so I know who I'm talking?
My name is Andy Sumalides. I'm the principal owner of Land Tech out of Westport.
Okay, so one of the commissioners asked about the test pits last time. Obviously, there were test pits done. There was a memo from our engineer, town engineer, on February 21st, asking for additional deep test holes to verify the separation distance from the bottom of the drainage system to groundwater or ledge. Was that extra test hole done? And if so, could you point to it on the plans?
It has not been done yet. It's being done this week.
It's being done this week?
Correct.
Okay. And where would that test pit be done? I have it in front of me on my computer, but could you show it on the plan there?
So the process of doing the test pits,
Mhm.
we get a schematic design from an architect with the layout, and then we go out and poke various holes throughout the site to figure out where we're going to site our drainage. Based on the size of the systems, the town engineer recommended that he wants a couple more in each system. So you can see some are right on the outskirts of where our proposed systems are. So what we're going to do is, you see the system up here.
Is there a cursor that could be used? Or-
Go ahead, you showed it here.
Yeah, so the system up on the left there, that one, we'll do two, one on either end.
Those are not done yet?
No, there is one there that was the basis of our design currently.
And where's that test pit with the little circle with the square?
Yeah, you see it to the, yeah,
The lower left.
up, down, right there.
And again, that infiltration, bunch of chambers drains from only the parking garage, I think you said last time?
That's the main residential building.
Oh, the residential building, the apartment building only,
Correct,
and the garage.
correct.
And the garage is hooked up to the sanitary sewer system? The garage, well, actually, it's indoors, it probably,
The garage floor levels below, yes, but the top floor is exposed,
okay,
so it acts as the roof.
okay.
So that runoff plus the roof runoff goes to that system. Then all of the asphalt paving, the existing diner, the new hotel, all gets hooked up to the other system behind the pool.
Okay, just one question you can answer. I was under the impression from prior applications that the garage has to drain into the sanitary sewer system.
Correct.
So would be a different system than this, right?
Correct. So the floors below the top floor of the parking garage,
Okay.
all those floors will go to the sewer system, correct?
Sanitary sewer system.
Correct. Goes through what's called an oil water separator. And sanitary sewer system.
So, okay, so
The
one,
top though is exposed of this parking garage. That runoff will have drains that drain out to that.
so you will be conducting another test pit on that one on the left side,
Two test pits,
two more.
two
Okay.
additional. And then the other system, we're gonna do three,
And how many have been done so far on the other one?
two, but they're kind of on the outskirts. One's kind of where the cursor is right now, DTH3, and the other one's to the right, right off to the right there.
And what was the distance from the bottom of the?
So we didn't hit any restrictive in any of the holes.
Okay,
So restricted us, so we basically took the bottom of the hole as restricted and designed off of that.
how far down is that from the? grade?
I don't remember the test hole data's up there on the left, so whatever. Test hole 3, bottom was 80, test hole 2. Bottom was, test hole 2 was 80, the other one was
80 what?
4,
80, could you just explain
80 inches.
below the grade
The
now?
existing grade.
Now, the grade is changing because somewhere, I watched the hearing again, and on the 25th of February, the architect said you're doing a great deal of excavating at the building deeper into the ground, that the garage is built into the rock, and you had to demolish into the rock to hide the garage from view. and you're actually removing the entire hill on the upper portion, where the upper portion of the hotel is currently on. Could you just explain how the grade is changing from now to then, and how much excavation is being done? Will blasting be being done?
You're talking about in terms of the construction of the residential building now?
Wherever the blasting is, wherever the hill is being removed, I assume it's
Done with the pits.
mostly for the.
Yeah, are we off the drainage pits? Cause,
I'm having a tough time following. you.
right, cause I was a little
I'm
confused.
done with the test pits. I'm
Okay.
asking about
Did you
that.
get your answer?
I got, yes, I got my
Hear an
answer. Thank
but
you.
Okay.
Wait, so now the question I think she's asking is
Yes,
Excavation.
major excavation, which I thought we discussed last time, but
Right.
quickly go through it.
which is in the vicinity of the existing hotel building. The existing, the one on the left-hand side, if you're looking at the page, which is, no, the existing would be further to the left.
Not the new.
Yeah, it'd be kind of in the vicinity of the parking garage, right?
Okay,
Call
so
it
that's
that.
where you're digging
There's an
in.
existing hotel building, and I think that off the top of my head, I want to say around elevation 35 is the first floor of that hotel building. And we're taking all that down, correct? Because our lower level there is, I think, elevation 14. Again, I don't have the plans.
Do you know how many cubic yards you're excavating out of there?
Yes, we have a note up there, earthwork quantities. If you zoom into that note. About 40. I'd say 48,500 cubic yards,
40,000,
48,000.
48,500.
Yeah, roughly.
And how much vertical distance from grade now down below are you excavating?
How deep?
Yeah.
So if the first floor is at like 35 and we're going down to about 20 feet.
And you know if there's any groundwater in that area now, and are you concerned, have you done a subsurface hydro?
We haven't done any borings yet for the foundation design. No.
I'm sorry,
We have not done any borings yet.
by that I mean a subsurface hydrogeological survey, is that? the same
Right,
thing?
borings is, yeah, you get a geotechnical engineer involved and they go and bore drill
You've not Done
down.
that yet?
No, not, that's typically done for when we do structural design for the foundation. Our test pits are right on the outskirts of that elevation, and there was no groundwater in those test pits. So we don't anticipate any groundwater at that elevation, because our test pits are roughly at elevation 12 to 11 in the back of the property. So if there was groundwater, that would have been evident in those test holes.
Okay, if you do, would it disturb the underground water patterns by doing, are you using blasting, by the way? Or no?
To be determined.
Yeah, we're not taking it off the table.
Okay.
I know.
And if you do find that it could change the subsurface hydrology, how does that change your plans?
We haven't investigated that far yet in
Okay.
terms of blasting and what that would do,
Thank you.
any groundwater patterns.
Can I go to Commissioner Randolph, or did you have a question?
I did have a question. I raised my hand.
Go ahead.
It's gonna be really, it's, the question is related to the test pits, just going, and I just want to make sure I heard you right. You were talking to Commissioner Braun about the additional test pits that Bill Hurley asked you to
Can
do.
you speak up just a little? I'm sorry.
Correct.
I'm just asking, I'm just piggybacking on your question on the test pits.
Okay.
Just going back to the February 21st letter. Those were the extra ones that you were.
Yes, they were based on Bill Hurley's recommendations.
Thank you.
Commissioner Randolph?
Yeah, two quick questions. One's for Mr. Here and the other's for the landscape architect piece here. You
All right,
don't
hold on,
have-
hold on. Are we done with this,
Can
gentleman?
I ask one more question to the engineer
Go ahead.
about impervious surface? I know last time you said the impervious surface is increasing from the property is 6 acres and increasing from 3 acres to 4 acres?
Yes, roughly.
Okay, because in the CAM review that DEP did, they said, thank you for decreasing the impervious surface. I didn't know what that meant. Was that based on a change in the plans that they asked you to do, or was that from what's there now? It didn't sound like it made sense to me.
No, I'm not sure that.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll get clarification for that in a second, but thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Who do you want to start with?
Just two questions for, for the architect and the landscape architect. It would be
Come on up,
helpful,
sir.
yeah, it would be helpful. Have you guys done a shade and shadow study? Of the sun angles and the impact on the surrounding areas?
We're in the process. We can provide the next
Can you
meeting.
repeat the question? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Have they done a shade and shadow study showing the impact on the neighbors?
So that was our previous meeting. We were in the process of doing that.
Thank you. And then on the landscape, would be helpful if you showed the net change in the elimination of the trees. So what trees have been eliminated, the calipers, and then the replacement.
We could do that. We haven't done that to date, but we can certainly do that for sure.
That's all I had. Thank you.
An environmental person here. I have a question about that environmental report.
Yeah, Brian.
Thank you. After that, we'll move to public comment. Go ahead, Commissioner Harrison.
Thank you. On the elimination of trees, so who will be providing that?
Landscape architect,
Lindsay, okay, Mr. Carey, or no, that's,
Mr. Governor.
okay, you left.
Yes. Just give your name quickly and Commissioner Braun had some questions.
Brian Carey, Conservation Director for Land Tech.
Hi, Mr. Carey. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I'm looking at the One Nature report dated January 15th, 2025, that was sent to, I guess, the Ash Creek Conservation Association.
Correct.
And I'm just gonna list their 7 recommendations to see if those were considered or accommodated or could be accommodated, perhaps. The first was the project must adapt to comprehensive sea level rise modeling in order to including and through 2100 and beyond to have adaptive stormwater systems to respond to changing conditions. Studies have shown 100-foot vegetative buffer. I believe there's a 15, according to the DEP report, there's a 15-foot vegetative buffer. And I think last time somebody testified that the closest drainage system is within 15 feet of the tidal wetland. 100-foot vegetative buffer can reduce nutrient and sediment runoff by 85%, enhancing wetland
Commissioner Braun,
migration.
can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Why don't we ask him to either in rebuttal or in writing respond to
I,
those?
I do have that report and we got it, I believe.
Can I just summarize it then, since it's in the record? I'll just give the 7 points without explaining them.
I
Yeah.
am, yeah, I am working on a response to that, and most of those items that were presented in that report are being addressed through our, either through changes or we have addressed them previously. One, I think the first one was talking about the flood modeling for the 2100, which is out basically Army Corps engineers modeling for the 2100 floodplain. So with that, the site, even at the year 2100 is still not in the 500-year floodplain. So the rest of it is a little bit more nuanced. So I do think, again, I'm working on a response to all that. It is things that we've considered throughout the design process. So I should have that to you by tomorrow or Thursday in a written response.
It's, so in other words, so I just want to explain, this was in tranche number 8 of 20 sets of emails we received. It was not identified as such. I just found it. And then the attachment is this expert that I guess Ash Creek Conservation Association uses. In his footnote 1, he said a site assessment, and he's referring to a natural diversity database study that the DEP provided them, different than the one they provided you, identified 6 other plant and animal species. So I found that from the Ash Creek. I don't think this is in the record, so I'm gonna give this to you.
So
you can-
there is like a little bit of a,
Okay,
there's a little bit of a quirk with the NDDB list. But one of the things is that we did have expanded list. Most of
okay.
those are nearshore species, talking about sand sharks, things that are not proximate to the site. So that should be in the record as well. We really only dealt with species that may or may not have been impacted by the particular project.
okay, so just, so can I list, because the ones I know you did
Well,
mention.
let's- If it's part of the record.
Well, I
and
don't
we
know
have
if it is. I did
Well,
not
it
see it
is.
in the record.
I think it-
I did not see,
Well, hold on, let's make sure it's part of the record then. There's no reason to read
Okay.
something that's already in there. Can I see it, please?
you can take this whole thing. There you
Why
go.
don't we just put it in, I mean, give it,
Some of those species on that list are not, they would be in Ash
pass this
Creek,
to Mr.
not
Wentz.
proximate to the site at Turning Creek.
Just pass it to Mr. Wentz, please.
Octagon or whatever is
Can
it?
you just confirm that that's in the record, please? You recognize it. If not, we'll put it in the record.
double check.
I feel like I've seen that myself, but
I think.
Yeah,
I've seen one that was,
We pulled it off the record. I mean.
Yeah,
we-
so I think it's in the
we
record.
Have it.
so it's
you have
fine.
one that only lists two species though, right?
We have
You have one that lists
we have the
6 or
Ash
7?
Creek letter with the report from their expert, and Brian has reviewed that and
So-
when I'm responding in rebuttal to.
I don't think I could not find the NDDB report there. Now, you might have gotten, sometimes different reports are issued that show different species because based on how wide you want to go. But this one says those are in proximity and the diagram shows it's very close, you know, to Turney Creek.
Well, he's gonna provide a response, so let's wait for the response. Otherwise, we're just kind of talking in circles. Is that fair?
Yes, I just want to make sure it's in the record. Yeah. They know what I'm talking about.
I do, and.
Thank you.
Commissioner Corsillo just pulled it up record and based on everything else and. Okay, all set.
Thank you. Yep.
Does Commissioner Collins have a question?
I didn't indicate so in the chat. You can ask him.
Commissioner Collins, do you have a question?
You can have that if it's not in the record.
It's in the record.
I didn't see it in the record.
Yeah, it's going back to the Circle Diner. If the lease expires, what kind of what could be built there afterwards if there's a failure to renegotiate it or not?
If the lease expires with the Circle Diner, what could go there? What could be put there later?
So under the application that's proposed, there can be no more residential density. I think the hotel can't be expanded based on the reg that we've proposed. I think because it would be if the building stays, obviously the building would be considered pre-existing, conforming technically with this reg, and another user could come in and operate a restaurant out of that site. I think if the building were to come down, we could try to come up with some crazy hypothetical of what might go there, but in reality, we're coming back to you asking for permission to do something different there, or we're putting another restaurant in.
If you're changing the use, you're coming back to us.
Yeah,
Correct?
yes.
If you're doing it, yeah, so, okay.
But it will almost invariably require a text change, not just a change in use, because of the text change that's proposed.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we should move on to public comments.
Thank
Thank you very much, gentlemen. With this one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the applicant has finished its initial presentation. Turn to public comments. What I would recommend at best we can, while I won't be instituting any kind of rules, if we can keep public comments to 3-4 minutes. If you have a written submission, that would be much easier, as opposed to reading it into the record. If it's gonna take longer than 3 minutes, submit the written statement, some highlights. I guess I see Attorney Green, I think is still with,
He's in his other
he's
meetings.
still in his other meeting, so I'll wait for him. There was talk of kind of a organized neighborhood presentation. Is that the case?
Not as organized as you might think.
Okay, which is fine, and that's fine. I just wanted to ask, because if there is such a presentation, I would do that. Otherwise, I'm gonna start with the people that are in person.
Mr. Green.
Attorney Green, okay, well, let me finish this. I'll start with the people that are in person. And then we can go to people who are joining us remotely. I would try, as I said, to keep comments 3 minutes if you can. I'm not gonna stop you if you go long. Just, you know, it's a lot of public comment. Written submissions are ideal. A lot more can be said and we can read them a lot quicker. And we read them all. Trust us on that. If you have 3-5 pages typed, single space, I don't think it's in our best interest for that to be read as opposed to putting into the record and giving some highlights. Attorney Green, let me ask you, how long do you have for your presentation?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Joel Green. I have 3 consultants this evening, and I've been enjoying the hearing in the other room on video.
I wish I could join you.
But I have a very brief matter
You haven't gotten to yet?
that I haven't gotten to.
Okay,
but-
that's fine.
But I anticipate, I have 3 consultants who will appear this evening.
Okay,
My clients.
normally I think you always are very kind to the public and let them go first. I think with an application like this, it would be helpful for you and your consultants, when you're available, to take the lead, so to speak, to give us that presentation. So obviously I'll let you go to your other thing for now, but when you're able to, I'd like to have you start tonight.
I'd be happy to do that, Mr. Chairman. And just also for the record, and I don't know whether all of the commissioners had received it, but I had circulated a memo with some, I think, some questions, sort of suggestions for the commission that might be posed to the applicant as a means actually of making the public hearing process more efficient. Because I think that it would clarify for the public some of the elements of the application. Yes, I believe that's it. And there's just a number of questions in there that I think might help to inform the comments by the public and maybe even the commission. So I just.
Attorney Braven, and Attorney, I'm sorry. Blank. It's up to you. I mean, because would be, I'm gonna take this as questions and public comments that would be normally free to do in rebuttal. We're obviously, I suspect, gonna be going into a second night or third night, excuse me. Is there a chance that maybe these can be answered in the meantime and submitted to the record?
So we will endeavor to answer what we can between now and next week. We just got this now, so
I
I'm
just
not
got it
prepared to
too.
do it this moment, but between now and next.
No, and
week.
if something comes up in the and you do something different than you said otherwise, I'm not gonna hold it against you. I
Appreciate
just
it.
got this as well.
And I might also say that in fairness, the applicant did respond to some of those questions with its presentation this evening. So some of those questions I think have been answered in fairness. But I think it would be very helpful if the applicant responds. And I apologize, but I had written a letter to the commission and I determined that maybe the best way was to just pose these questions. And I did that this afternoon. So I'm going to continue to monitor the hearing and I'm only going to need about 15 minutes for a matter.
When you come back in, though, I would like you to start your presentation, because as I've said, I think for something like this with your consultants that you have, leading the way would be helpful for the frame of public comments.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So until Attorney Green is ready, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Really,
Regarding the intervention, will that take place when Attorney Green returns then? Because we have to make a decision on accepting the documents.
that's what I expected.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You represent the intervener.
I do.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, sorry for that. Why don't we jump right into it? Normally it's first come, first serve. There's no need to stampede, so to speak. What we'll do is we'll start with this gentleman who's coming up. And if there's a sense of who's gonna be up next, come on, sir. Yeah, sorry, if you, as a public comment, if you can please give your name, address. Obviously, keep comments germane to this application. If you don't mind, I may just be mindful of people with timeframes, if you don't mind. As I said, if we can keep things 4 minutes would be ideal. Anything in writing, please submit now or after the hearing.
I have some slides. I'm Sean Kelly. I sent them in for
Oh,
you.
that's right. Yeah, I remember. You have.
I did time
you're the
it. I'm
intervener.
just under 5 minutes. I
No, but you're
apologize.
the proposed intervener, I believe.
I-
Yeah, that's fine.
No. Hello, I'm Sean Kelly. If we could get my slides up, I'd appreciate it.
All right, you need 1 second.
No worries.
I wasn't ready.
Thank you, Ms.
sorry.
Harrigan.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Harrigan.
Hello
Sorry,
again.
your name, if you said it already, I apologize. Name and address.
My name is Sean Kelly. I live at 104 Shoreham Village Drive.
Thank you.
My property shares the longest residential border with the development. I'm a rookie at this, so I'm trying to figure it out and I'm learning as I go along here. I would really like to introduce you to the wonderful neighborhood of Shoreham Village Drive. As you can see up on the slide right now, you can see the current hotel. The red line is the border between our neighborhood, and that's the satellite view. I'd like to, and we are to the east. We are approximately 40 homes of very modest sized Cape homes, mostly built in the 1940s with some small tasteful additions put on. We have summer block parties, we have holiday cookie swaps, we have yard sales, and we have a pretty robust email group. If you can go to the next slide, please. This is just kind of a clearer Google map look. It's only one entrance. It's a wonderful place to walk and ride, have your kids ride their bicycles. Again, the orange line demarcates the property that we share with the current proposed development. I'm gonna stand up just to point. My house is 104, which is here. Mike and Bill's house is 120, which is right below it. Correct. And then Bill and Shannon's house, Mike's and Shannon's house is 134. Couple things on the picture that I would like to bring out to you is one, the current location of where the hotel footprint is in our house. There's really no overlap in the profile. I would also like you to look at the current hotel and how close it is to the street currently. And then the other point I would like to point out, if you were to go all the way up to the top of the circle and look down, you can still see, I'm sorry, over where, here.
Pointer.
I need a laser pointer. I'm sorry. If you were to go up the top road, start here and go up the top road, you can see all the way down to the property that's in discussion right now. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is my house. The red line is where the hotel view is from, where the street standing on the 104. If you can show the next slide, please. And if you turn to the left, the stone wall is the shared property line with the current hotel development. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? This is a view from my porch. The hotel was built in 1960 and sold to the current owners in 2014. My real estate and I both reviewed the zoning of both properties where I purchased my home in 2019. If you can go to the next slide. We've seen this, but I flipped it so it corresponded to the north-south. My house is noted in 104 and 120 and 134. The street was shown on the previous slide. This development now significantly intrudes into our community. The attention where the stone wall picture was, and I will try to reach up to it, is approximately here. And I would also like to bring attention to this area here. They make it green. This is a road. They might call it permeable pavers, but it's a fire road. It's going to have to be plowed in the winter. Your kids are not going to be playing football on it or soccer on it. If you could go to the next slide, please. These are kind of the statistics, and I'm sorry I have to pull out my actually picture so I can get the number for you. The current hotel sits, compared to 104 Shoreham Drive, is currently 90 feet from the property line. The proposed would bring it to 30 feet. The hotel current structure from the 104 Shoreham Village Drive, structure of my porch is from 113 feet and would come down to 45 feet. If you take the house to the south, which is 120 Shoreham Village Drive, the property line goes from setback is 146 feet to 42 feet. And if you go from where the hotel is to the street of Shoreham Village Drive, it's 176 feet and then becomes 75 feet. The hotel profile facing 104 Shoreham Drive is currently 52 feet. It will go up to 200 feet, which is my entire property line. The number of windows facing east, which is towards my property, is currently 0. It will go to 65. And there was a question about shadowing. The hotel casting a shadow on other properties currently is 0. And I believe that as soon as afternoon hits, my property will be in shade. If you could go to the next slide, please. I only have 2 or 3 more slides. This is the current profile. If you were to walk all the way to the back of my back corner of my home, of my lot, the above is the proposed profile that I will be seeing through my entire property line. Of note, there was a question last week of how tall things are. If you start at the staircase here, and you measure to the top of, I believe that's a staircase, a fire staircase, that is 72 feet. So these windows are huge. We had the exact number, or someone told me earlier, but I misplaced it. If you put 2 of these together, they're equivalent to the size of my garage door.
Oh my God.
That stairwell up at the top, if you take the footprint of that stairwell, it's 1/3 of my house. And the corner apartment in the top corner is almost the same square footage of my house. This is giant. We can go to the next slide, please. If you start with the slide on the right, the stone wall is the property line. That tree is very close to where the property line is. You can see the green field in the back. That's supposedly where the fire road's going. If you step back off my property line towards my mailbox, you can see the same exact picture with the 2 stars being the property line, one being on the stone wall, one being on the tree. The orange bird is sitting on a branch that's about 30 feet off 30 feet of height. The power line is about 13 feet off the ground, and that's the electrical. If we can go to the next slide, please. If you pull back up the street, and you can go all the way to the top of the street, but I only included this picture, you can still see that tree. The profile of the building, I'm sorry about the error on the slide. The branch and the bird are still 30 feet in the air. The treetop of that tree is about 87, and the building max screen height is 72, and I think 4 inches. Again, that's not including the fire stairwell that sits on top of the building. For some reason, that's never measured. This building's massive. This is a building, I 3D printed it. This is my house in relationship to the building now. I'm gladly pass it around. These other 2 houses I also put on the other property. If you want to pass it around, you can. I've heard the development's presentation 4 times, and they'd like to tell this narrative of a New England inn. And I would like to change that narrative tonight. I asked the board to deny this application and give the developers the following strong advice. Take inspiration from the modest New England homes and families on Shoreham Village Drive. They keep taking inspiration from the Black Point Inn in Maine. That has 25 units. They've also noted Ocean House in Rhode Island. That has 69 units. The real thing I'd like them to take inspiration from is the current regulations governing the DRZ, which includes right now their ability to build 65 units. There's a caveat that if they wanted to build senior housing, they could build more. This board last week roughly doubled that. So if they applied the rules from last week, they might be able to get up to 110. They're asking for tripling on double what you doubled last week. A 5 to 6 times 100% increase in what, when I purchased my house and read the regs. And I honestly asked to please invite them to come back with a modest density request that respects the creeks, their neighbors, and tries to figure out the traffic situation without adding to the headache. Thank you very much for your time.
One suggestion, and that's all it is. It's a suggestion is if we can, not to you, sir. First off, do you want your model back?
Please.
Yeah. Okay.
You want it, I can make another one.
No, if you wanted to submit it for the record, that's one thing. If you want it back, that's another, you know.
I don't think you want it for the,
Yeah.
I don't think you want it for the record.
One recommendation I give for applications like this where there's motions on both sides is if we can avoid a pause, just applauding one is going against another side and vice versa. So the only recommendation, that's just my best experience in keeping things simple and professional. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to be very brief.
Say what you need to say. I appreciate everybody saying, you know, keeping the efficiency to mind, but feel free to say what needs to be said.
All right. My name is Armin Katayan. My wife Dee Dee and I have lived at 314 Birch Road, a block and a half from Penfield Beach for the last 14 years. Professionally, I was an investigative reporter for Sports Illustrated before spending 26 years as a network television correspondent, including 7 as the chief investigative correspondent for CBS News in New York. So I speak from experience when I say the devil is in the details. None more so in this case than the unassailable need for a comprehensive, independent traffic and environmental studies detailing what I suspect will be a profound, everlasting impact this proposed development, not just the hotel, but the accompanying housing development will have on an already congested Fairfield Circle. During our time in Fairfield, Dee Dee and I have made countless trips to Stop and Shop, the Circle Diner, Whole Foods, and the Home Depot. Like so many in this room and watching online, we know firsthand how crowded and congested that circle can be. And I'm not just talking about the 4% increase in traffic that we were talking about tonight, the developers. But what about the housing development behind it, conveniently missing from that proposal? But that's not my point. My point is, as representatives of this town, it's your job to determine the impact this massive project will have on the quality of our lives and have the courage to either vote it down or dramatically reduce it. Thank you.
Submit that.
You submit
We
it?
can't. You gotta upload it, but.
I tried to before.
Was that?
There.
You gotta see it.
Okay, if you bring the system down, man, can't do anything about it.
We'll do our best.
Yeah. Don't tell my IT guy.
Good evening.
Can I start with? Good evening. My name is, thank you. My name is Linda Batchelder and I live at 175 Shoreham Village Drive within the 200-foot radius of this site. I moved in 2005 and I've been a Fairfield resident since 1986. I started at Soundview Avenue, went to High Street, and now I'm here. Seems like the development's just everywhere. But I'd like to impart that the developers have said how they've accommodated us, and we felt a little less accommodated than they predict. That when we talk about the pulling back of the top floor, which I love, the idea of it not being 5 stories straight up with almost 11-foot floor to floor distances. It does not happen in the one that faces our street. It goes straight up the 5 floors there. It does on the one that is next to our street, it steps back just a couple feet. This is being scaled off a 1/16 inch drawing. There were no dimensions for any of this, so I'm doing my best to try and figure it out. Where there are the 5-foot wide balconies is facing the pool courtyard. But that doesn't really help alleviate the feeling of to the neighborhood and to the street of the 5 foot straight up.
Are you ready?
Yes, okay. So in here, I've taken the original survey and I have overlaid I took the trees off of that and copy clipped them onto the drainage drawing. And so the trees are shown in black would be staying. And I know that you've just asked this of them, so I will just be very brief. But the trees in red are the ones that were going. So basically what is staying is over behind the diner. And the rest, either there's enough grading going on or the drainage areas, they're coming through and the horizontal portions with the rock to disperse the filtered water is up against the trunks. And I just don't think there's chance any of those are going to survive. So basically it's all new trees except for over by the diner. And today, let's see. Could you go to the next one? Sure. Thank you. So today you can see at the top, that's a photograph of the 2 houses that in our neighborhood that the previous that Sean was talking about. And you can see all the trees that are there. They reside up on the hill that's coming out. So the look of our street is going to be very different. And I've overlaid their drawing of houses for scale. And I'd say in their drawing, they've put the profile of 2 homes, but those homes would be maybe the max you could ever build on this A zone piece of property. Currently, the house that's there is a ranch from the 50s, both of them. And I can assure you their ceilings are not over 8 feet. And they've drawn them as if there are 9.5-foot ceilings in those homes. They had on top of that, a big pitch. So we feel when we see drawings like this that don't really represent the conditions, we begin to doubt where we're going. And then could we go back just one to the flood? We have a lot of concern about the level of the water. And I know in our letters we wrote about the level of the water, but I just wanted to go one step further and say, I'm concerned that when I read reports about the Rooster River, it wasn't one thing that made the Rooster River flood so badly and such a liability to the town. It was many developments. So we've seen an increase, and this is just anecdotal, but since the medical building went in next to Stop and Shop, we've noticed a rise in the river in big rains. So it used to rarely go over my neighbor's fence. And now on a regular basis with the rain, it is up, the bank is higher and the fence is in the water. So there was a correlation between that development and what's going on here. And I think it was just because the banks were contained at that point. I don't know. This is not my expertise. I'm a residential architect, not an engineer. But there is another big piece of property upriver across from Whole Foods that is yet to be developed. So we are looking at more development coming on. And the whole idea that if somebody is draining into a tidal area, as the state says, that it would not be a problem, I believe it will be a problem. That we've seen anecdotally this rise. And so I would request that the town do an independent study as to what the impact is of this water not being detained on site, but just filtered and put into the tidal area. Okay, next, can you skip 2 slides forward, please? And then I just go back to when everybody signed the petitions and when we were first told about this project, we saw the renderings on the top. A true New England kind of feel. I was a little skeptical because both the inn and the apartment houses had 4 full floors. And we all know when we go to the attic, that's not a full floor. Even when you put a dormer in your attic, you don't get a full room up there. So their room count versus the roof pitches have yet to be quite figured out. And we are going from what's called a schematic to a preliminary, and then we'll develop it more. But I'm just concerned is what will this end up looking like? Can you go to the next slide, please? And so the New England character is really not in this end of the hotel. We've got shutters, but we have plate glass between the shutters. So I don't know. I know you're not the Historic District Commission and you can't dictate what the windows look like. But I just want to make sure that we approve something that we really need and not because we think it'll look charming, because we have no control over that. Next slide, please. So this is just one more case of, I don't know of an old hotel that has 2 different colors like this. To me, this feels very modern and you can like it, but it's not a New England charming hotel. So with that, I just ask that the commission be very respectful about the size and the bulk, because I don't know exactly the rules about how much you have control over. But I just feel like if we're just approving something that could be 250 units and 110 hotel rooms, and as it's developed further and value engineering comes along, what will happen? In the next slide, could you just hit that? And this is just a video that shows the extent of the hotel.
I don't know that I can play it from
There
here.
it goes.
There it goes.
Look at that.
It's a minute and a half. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but I constructed this. It was complex enough at Christmas time when my neighbors were trying to figure out how many buildings were there, how big were they? And we're not really understanding the complexity of it. I just want to make sure everybody knows the size of it. It's just, but you've now seen Sean's 3D plastic model, which I think shows it as well. But this is just, it's going to be there for a very long time. And I understand right now we need housing, but this is an awfully big piece to put all in one place and all exiting onto that Circle Diner area.
Thank you.
Can I ask her a question, Mr. Chairman? Very briefly,
Yes.
while we're watching the video. So you are a residential architect. I have a question based on your architecture knowledge. What kind of windows would you put in there? If not, somebody said they're the size of a garage door, they're plate glass. What would be recommended from your perspective? And I would always recommend bird strike window, but I'm talking about from the architectural viewpoint.
Well, I think they're so big, they're really big. They're like 4 foot by 7 feet on the, some of the bigger ones on the apartment block. And then there are others that are 3 feet by 6 feet. And I think they're so big because the walls are so big. So everything is just scaled up. So it would be from a neighbor point of view, I would love for it not to glow so much at night. This is really going to glow at night. Everybody pulls their blinds, but why would you pull your blinds when you're looking out onto Long Island Sound or onto the marsh? So I think this building is really going to glow, not to mention the rooftop deck for the garage.
And
But-
about the trees, oh, sorry, continue.
But for the hotel, I would want to be able to see the divisions of the panes of the windows. And I don't, in some places they seem to be there in the rendering and others not. So maybe they're between the glass, but I would just think, and they're black, so black ones disappear. If they're white, they show up much more.
Just a question about the trees, the trees that are being destroyed around the hill that they're demolishing, but the trees that you said some trees are not going to survive that are replanted. Could you clarify what you meant by that, or what we're talking about?
There's one at the very end of the road, kind of where the garbage is kept. And it's a 40.
The current road or the future road?
It's both, actually.
Show the slide.
Road from where to where?
It's the very first slide, please.
1 second.
Yes. So it's a locust and it's a 40-inch locust according to their survey. And it's right under its drip line There is going to be, the drainage, the street, there's gonna be a pipe put in for the drainage. And then all the utilities are coming down that way as well. And then they're repaving the road. That tree is not in great shape. Say at least that's where the osprey, I can see the osprey and predators up there hanging out. So it's not got a lot of leaves on
Are
it.
you talking about the road that they're calling the fire access road
Just at the start of the fire access.
behind the diner?
No, that's not as tall as Sean is, but let me see. It's, see that wing right there? The right-hand wing of the apartment block?
Right where the cursor is.
Yes, that tree,
Okay,
that tree,
and that's in the vicinity of the drainage system?
yes. And then the road's getting repaved, so there'll be, and the utilities are going in there, so there'll be a fair amount of digging and that huge tree isn't in great shape. Maybe it's near the end of its life, so.
It does look like it's where the fire access road goes, though, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, and then the others are in red. The ones that are within the apartment block are on the hill.
Those will be just demolished,
Oh, yeah.
obviously. Okay,
Yeah,
and the trees that are staying are the ones near the diner?
correct.
Do you see a risk to those trees based
No,
on?
there's nothing being done over there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to submit we have a few more petitions that were done hard copy, and I would just like to submit those for the
Yes,
record.
please. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, if she wants the flash drive back, just submit the presentation via email.
Can you give me like 1 second, then I'll give it back to you?
Sorry, go ahead, ma'am. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much to the commission. Want to thank you for your service to the town. My name is Melanie Ross and I live at 796 Riverside Drive. We are a property owner and our kids go to high school there. Here in Fairfield Public High School. I'm here to talk about the proposed development at 441 Post Road and about the safety for our residents. As a concerned parent and neighbor of this town, I think this type of dense housing would work better for maybe a subway system. Instead of all this dense parking garage in terms of the rotary, it's not going to be able to handle that all the transportation and in a safe way. This is a walking neighborhood and Shoreham Village residents, they walk to town. My friends walk into the beach, the kids walk to school, they ride their bikes. So to have more housing and to have more cars coming into the Rotary area, I just can't see how it's going to be more safe. I can see a surge of accidents happening. The school bus stops in Post Road, just to the east side of the hotel, Shoreham Village. So the school bus does not go into Shoreham Village for the middle school students. So we have that there. There are a lot of other school buses passing by. I was a victim of road rage incident in the circle because someone was passing by and didn't realize that we had to merge to get into the circle. So everyone, to have more cars coming in, I do not see how it's going to be safe. I can't imagine how we're all going to merge around the circle. I drive around that circle at least four times a day. I'm going to activities back and forth, the Stop and Shop. I mean, I just think it's irresponsible and it's really not safe. And we need to have a deeper study doing that. My husband is driving there. My teenage daughter is driving over there for activities. We have drivers, but we're also walkers. And with this type of housing, we have to think that, and people are going to try and avoid the circle. They're going to be driving into the neighborhoods. They're going to be driving on Old Post Road because they're going to try and avoid the circle. They're going to be driving on Riverside Drive and coming down Belmont. So that traffic is going to be diverted into the neighborhoods as well as the courier drivers as well. We have truck drivers coming in. So I just wanted to say that please do not approve any further expansion. Please have them tone that down. I think the safety study should be done independently, because this grade is not even an F, it's a G. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Donna Curran. I live at 224 Pearsall Place, Black Rock and Bridgeport. I address you this evening as a passionate advocate and activist for both Long Island Sound and Ash Creek. And I retain a vested interest in Fairfield for my past associations, 20 summers on living on Fairfield Beach, 18 years raising my family in Fairfield, and the last 34 living a block and a half from Ash Creek. So I really love my community, and that spills over into Fairfield. At present, I am serving my 23rd year as a board member of the Ash Creek Conservation Association. I also have experience working for developers, commercial and residential developers, and also fighting them at zoning hearings, something similar to this. And having to push back at developers' overzealous plans is familiar territory. However, to be honest, and with all due respect to the applicant, this proposal is especially egregious and disturbing by its mammoth size. In an age of rising sea levels, more than 40 units per acre, 26 times the existing requirement, 110 hotel units and parking for 538 cars are being proposed within the short distance of 75 feet from the edge of Ash Creek, Turney Creek. I couldn't believe it. It's like a nightmare, to be honest with you, because so much mitigation is required to offset, I don't know what the right word is, the porosity of the land, because what was draining rainwater before is now taken up with hardscape. So for the record, I am in complete agreement with the Friends of the Circle and all the points they raise in opposition. My focus tonight is on the impact of this development on Ash Creek and its viability. Ash Creek is shared by Bridgeport and Fairfield. For more than 20 years, Ash Creek Conservation Association has formed active partnerships with the town of Fairfield, the city of Fairfield, Connecticut DEEP, Save the Sound, Aspetuck Land Trust, Connecticut Audubon, on and on, to create a strong coalition of stakeholders to ensure the preservation and conservation of this natural gem. Our joint efforts have helped to create a healthy environment for 125 species of birds, waterfowl, and fish. And I have to say, we've added osprey and the bald eagle to that pantheon. I also like to say, lest we forget, we are human beings, and we are also endangered species. And we need these things for ourselves. It's one of the reasons why, we heard from the Affordable Housing Commission and, of course, Economic Development Commission. I respect them. But that's a very narrow focus. When you get into zoning, you're dealing with traffic, safety, air quality, quality of life, walkability of neighborhoods. And also, where do we go to restore our soul when we deal with all this crowding and congestion? I mean, it's overwhelming to me. So we commissioned that report from One Nature. And they said that Lantup did, address some issues properly, but they felt they didn't go far enough. They weren't rigorous enough because Ash Creek is such a special, unique, intact estuary. And here's something I don't know if anybody realizes, and maybe this is, I'm not an architect, but I was looking at the profile, a side view, the profile of the rear of the building, and you have 0 sea level, and then you have an 18-foot slope, and then you have 50 feet of the building based on the plans I saw back in December. So that's 68 feet, and water is going to be coursing down that incline into the creek if it's not rigorously and properly dealt with. And also, if the runoff isn't properly dealt with, it can affect the salinity of Ash Creek, which would affect the town of Fairfield's oyster beds. They've been out there for a number of years now. Also, I'd like to note that a 68-foot building with glass, noise, residential and parking lot lighting, and then I think I heard 9,000 square foot of pool area space will be disturbing to the denizens of Ash Creek. And then are these 250 residents allowed to have dogs? That's something to think about. And during migration season, more than 3 million birds fly over Fairfield County at 1,100 feet, moving at about 22 miles per hour. I mean, it's awesome. Amazing what we cannot see. And they cannot see either because of the lighting here below. So that's something this development really has to consider as non-glare glass, downward pointing lighting, the noise. Someone wanted to put an amphitheater in Penfield. I mean, it's completely ignoring the fact that we all live in this planet together and we should be supporting each other. Lastly, Ash Creek will receive more than $1 million. We're very fortunate from public and private sector to stabilize the barrier spit that's at the head of the creek, restore the berm along Gilman Avenue, and other initiatives to offset flooding from sea level rise. And it seems counterintuitive to me to approve a plan that will generate significant additional runoff and possible pollutants while the state and others are investing so much and we're working so hard to lessen them. So I asked the commission, maybe this would be something, I know I just heard when you were discussing your rules, how burdened you are already, and I certainly do appreciate that. Maybe because of the size of this project, the impact, there should be an independent study. I mean, we have our consultant, the applicant has their consultant. Maybe you need, and I'm not dictating to you, I'm gently suggesting your own consultant on traffic and the ecological impacts if the water retention processes are not done to a highest standard, not standard, but the highest standard, because it's such a precious estuary. And as the woman before me said, this is a forever building. This thing will loom on the landscape and overshadow the shoreline forever. So we don't want to deny the developers their opportunity to develop, but it must be respectful for all of us, to all of us. And it must be enlightened, proactive response to the issues that threaten the environment and our quality of life. They should not be building to today. They should be building for tomorrow, 20 years from today, because this building is going to be around a long time and things are changing very rapidly. Thank you.
All right.
It was 3 pages, but it was double spaced. My eyesight.
Thank you.
I don't have a precedent thing, right? I just talk.
I think you just talk into it, yep.
Hi, thank you so much for your time. My name's Eunice Alexu. I live at 137 Shoreham Village Drive. I'm one of the houses that's within the 200 feet setback from the Circle Inn. I'm assuming everyone here has visited Shoreham Village Drive at one point or another and noticed it's a very quiet, charming little neighborhood, often the forgotten neighborhood in town. I have so many times people come and they're like, I didn't even know this street existed. This is so charming over here. It's adorable. We've lived here for 15 years. We have 2 school-age children. And like all the neighbors on our street, everyone's been here for a long time. It's not a high turnover street or a neighborhood. I just feel that this proposed building is simply just too large for the area. I live directly across from Sean Kelly, the one who spoke first. So I have his same view of looking at that side of there. And it's not a problem in the summer because the trees fill in and it's nice. But I also, now with this proposed 5-foot story, everyone's going to be looking into my patio, my outdoor shower, where my 2 kids shower every day from March to, or April to, October. So now I'm gonna have 65 huge windows of people just looking down at us. The owners of the inn stated that they wanted to be good neighbors with us. And after our initial conversation with them, where we requested that the building be moved further back from the property line, no meaningful changes really were made. Over the years, my husband and I have personally raised issues about this one light that directly from the inn comes into our bedroom at night, all night long. They have never been addressed. Even addressed it in December, and nothing has happened. There is constantly garbage in that property. It's never picked up, and it's always blowing into other neighbors from the inn all the way down. And my biggest concern is.
Here it is.
What?
No, keep going.
Oh, sorry. The safety of the sidewalks. They have not plowed those sidewalks I know everyone is supposed to be responsible for plowing their own sidewalks. And the inn just let it just harden as ice. So for the whole month of end of December, January
We
through
open, so just.
a week ago.
Talk back to you.
It was just ice. So pedestrians are walking in the post road. So as a driver, you're like, oh, there's a pedestrian, might not want to hit him because he's he can't go on the sidewalk because the inn hasn't plowed it. Those are just my question is, will these issues be addressed when there's a new, beautiful, shiny building? They're gonna keep it up? Are they gonna plow it? Are they gonna keep these trees that they're gonna plant? Are they gonna water them? Are they deer proof? Because we have families of deer that live with us. So those are my biggest concerns. I really am. All we're asking is that the building be reduced in size to be respectful, that respects the privacy and the safety of the surrounding neighborhood. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right up.
All right, so I'm David Alexu. I obviously am married to her, Eunice. And I wanted to go and dazzle you guys with a couple of facts that I learned about from the DOT 2019 Post Road Circle study that was published in September of 2020. Interesting facts that include this corridor was the 7th most dangerous road for bicyclists in the state, or state roads. This is a crash hotspot. In the same study, 220 crashes occurred in this area from 2016 to 2018, within half a mile of the Circle Inn. 116 of those happened in the area itself, so in the circle and the surrounding area. 2 of those were serious, one of which was a fatality. To compare this to other state roads, the average number of accidents is 3.59 crashes per million vehicle trips. This area is 15 crashes per million vehicle trips. So it's 4.2 times more dangerous than any other state road in the area. 17% of all bicycle crashes in Fairfield occurred in the Fairfield Circle. There's also been fatalities here. So there's been a fatality of someone crossing the post road trying to get across to where the development is just outside of Shoreham Village Drive to go to that development that's the restaurants in the area over there. So when the developers say that they want to go and make this a safe walking area, I have serious doubts because this is an extremely dangerous circle. It's an extremely dangerous area, and it is not safe for people to go and walk on. All this is going to do is continue to contribute to more and more cars being on the road and can create a self-fulfilling circle prophecy of more and more cars, more and more accidents, and more issues. So I did want to leave you guys with one comment or one line. So my son, he was born on March 2nd, which is Dr. Seuss's birthday. And growing up, I loved reading to him. And one of my favorite books reading to him was The Lorax. So I leave you with this. I meant no harm. I most truly did not. But I had to grow bigger, so bigger I got. I biggered my factory. I biggered my roads. I biggered the wagons. I biggered the loads of the needs I shipped out. I was shipping them forth from the south to the east, to the west, to the north. I went right on biggering, selling more needs, and biggering my money, which everyone needs. My point here is that while this property in its current form, it's big, what they're proposing is massive and does not need to be that big to go and do it. Thank you.
Those statistics in the record, or could you ask them to?
Part of the study. Study.
Hi, I'm Christine Rose. I'm a 30-year resident of Riverside Drive. I live at 368. So I'm far enough down the road that I'm not worried about the concern of having a big towering building in my backyard. My bigger concern is not only from my neighbor's view, but with the environment, which somebody already just covered, and then safety. People who know me know that I ride my bike every day, all year round, as long as it's at least 20 degrees and the sun's shining. I will avoid, Greenfield Hill when it's icy out, but I'm down there in the beach area every day. My concern is with the safety and walking issues in this area. When they proposed the traffic plan, they displayed this photo last week. I can't find anything on the Connecticut DOT site that says this is actually a work in progress. And when asked about it last week, we were informed that it's really just still in design. There's nothing concrete going on. But what is concrete going on is many of you may have participated in the Post Road Circle, which the gentleman just referenced before. So this was a study done in 2019. And while I was sitting at home in lockdown in 2020, I got in the mail the survey to take on the safety and my opinions living close to the circle. Some of the things that they came out with were that they would like to set up a local transportation capital improvement program or an LOTCIP project for that area of Post Road. I'll send all this in because I realize I don't have slides here, but it's the area stretching from the corner of the diner all the way to the town line with Bridgeport. This is under design right now. It's a bicycle pedestrian improvement project, and it is a real project that's going on. It came out as a result of this study that the Connecticut DOT had hired. And there are a couple of things in this study that I'd like to reiterate. One is the majority of respondents, 81%, believe that safety is a huge issue here in the circle. And approximately 77% of respondents indicated that the intersection at Route 130 and the Old Post Road near the Circle Hotel posed the most significant safety concerns. That's before this project we're looking at tonight was even considered. As the gentleman just said before us, it's a huge issue with crash areas. Not only crashes, but there are areas of concern. Those are near misses. A number of these are directly in front of the property. Connecticut Dot on their website is committed to the principle, and I'm quoting, that walking and bicycling promote healthy lives, strong communities, and more sustainable environments. The Connecticut Dot will encourage, promote, and improve walking, bicycling, and other forms of active transportation so that any person, regardless of age, ability, or income, will be able to walk, bike, or use other types of active transportation modes safely and conveniently through Connecticut. This is what they're working for with these new plans that they've come up with for our area. As I said, I've lived here 30 years. Since I've moved in, this has been a headache. Everyone talks about it, nothing gets done. At least we finally have started on a plan that could lead to improvements in the area. One of the things when you do these plans and improvements is it says that the LOTCIP is funded with 20-year state bonds. Therefore, projects funded under the LOTCIP must be designed to provide a minimum 20-year design service life. I looked at the plans and all of the traffic online in the given report. The report they have is a similar layout to the one we were witness last week with the circles. When you overlay the traffic of the two, you end up with some areas increasing by up to 40% in the traffic intersection. One is where the two roads cross, intersection number 6. In 2019, it was an AM traffic flow at peak hour of 113, and their projection for 2040 is 120 through there. With the current site proposal, they're estimating 46 more in here, and that equals a 40% increase. And compared to 2040, it's a 37% increase. Obviously, this is not the kind of traffic and pedestrian safety that we're looking for. Finally, I want to wind up with, as I said, I've been a biker here for years and years. I still go out in spite of having had 2 bike accidents caused by cars here in the town of Fairfield. One was in May of 2021 down on Fairfield Beach Road. A car pulled out from a driveway. I avoided by slamming on my brakes, turning, hitting something in the road, was thrown over my bike, and I broke 3 ribs. This took months to get over. It was 3 mildly displaced left lateral 6th, 7th, and 8th ribs fractured. That means they were broken all the way through, not just a minor crack, and it took forever. The other time I was hit was October 28th, 2013, and I will walk around with this picture. This was where my bike landed after I was hit directly in front of the old town hall. I was in the right, I was in my lane, I was riding along, and a car turned into the old town hall driveway in front of the church and hit me. I was thrown from my bike. Thank God I had a good fitting helmet on because it cracked and I was knocked out briefly. The ambulance came, the police came. It's not something that I would wish on anyone. And you need to think about this. I will not ride my bike across that road as it is. I occasionally walk over, but it scares me to go over there. People do not pay attention in this town. I'm out there every day and I have to avoid getting hit by cars every day on my bike. Just keep that in mind, please, the traffic And safety should always come first before profits. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything you want to submit in the record?
I'll submit it online
That's
because
fine
this
too.
is all this.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have a request. All the studies that were mentioned, is that in a letter that's already in the record, or will you be drawing it together? Because it would be helpful.
The
to put
study
that
I
in writing.
sent in a letter after last week's meeting, I sent a link to the study. It was called the
That's LTCIP.
this is the picture of the front of the PDF, Post Road Circle
So there was
study.
a letter tying it together.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I will include the link again.
Mr. White, go ahead.
Just for the sake of the record, that separate document is posted separately in a PDF under the neighbors correspondence. It's labeled the Circle Study Final Technical Memorandum.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
It's in the record posted presently.
Right. And they had sought neighbor input, particularly people that lived within a certain distance. And use the circle every day, both walking, biking, driving, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know. It seems like they
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Nina Salzman. I live at 64 Shoreham Village Drive, within 200 feet of the proposed development. I'll try to be brief. I did submit a letter, but I'll try to add additional points based on the presentation from the developers this evening. First of all, my family and I moved here in 2021. I have 2 children in the school system, and they take the bus, which my daughter takes the bus to high school, which always goes through the traffic circle. And my son often bikes to school past the hotel to Sherman Elementary. So my family and I moved here, as I said, in 2021. We could have moved to Stamford, we could have moved to Norwalk, but we chose Fairfield for just about the same reasons that all of my neighbors chose Fairfield, specifically Shoreham Village. We were really attracted to the charm of the area, and sadly that seems to be under threat tonight. I just wanted to address 2 points that the developers started with tonight. It was very telling that they started with these 2 points, which I guess they thought was the most impressive. One was that their first point was that they were increasing public access to Turney Creek. I don't know if anyone in my neighborhood needs more access. We've got plenty of access to open space. And furthermore, where would people park if they're offering this public access? Where would people park? It's already, we've got plenty of walking space, and they're just going to make it more unwalkable. So that's a ridiculous point that they made. Second of all, they raised the point of the need for more multifamily housing in the town. I agree that might be fair, but does it need to happen on this little site, this little parcel of land, directly adjacent to a historic district? Directly adjacent to our village, built in the 1940s, directly adjacent to a wetland. I question whether multifamily housing is suitable for this site. I mean, or definitely at that scale. I would suggest that you look at other parcels of land in town that could be more suitable to such large scale development, such as very close to the Fairfield Metro. I know the Alto development has been very successful. I'm sure there was pushback there, but I think it works much better. Large scale developments work much better close to the metro sites, stations. And I think there's plenty, from what I can see, I'm not the expert, but I see plenty of undeveloped parcels of land around Fairfield Metro. So on the other side of the track or whatnot. So I would, request that you consider whether this site is suitable for such a large scale development. The traffic has definitely been the foremost of my concerns. I have a lot of anxiety just thinking about how I'm going to now cross the circle with the 350% increase in density that this development proposes, alongside the 500 plus vehicles. Right now, it's very underutilized because it's a hotel. So, there's some traffic comes, to once in a while, but imagine that these are now residents coming and going at all times of the day. Imagine the delivery trucks. I mean, and even in my neighborhood, there's delivery trucks coming around the circle multiple times a day, even at night. I can hardly imagine how now Amazon trucks are now gonna have to navigate the circle, delivering to these 500 residents or whatever number of residents it is. So in short, the scale is grossly out of sync with the location in terms of traffic, in terms of, like I mentioned, being adjacent to the historic area, open space. It is also far enough from both metros that people will have to drive. So it's not that it's going to become more walkable, quite the opposite. People will be getting in their car to drive around town. So that's completely erroneous that they're suggesting that it's going to become more walkable. That's complete nonsense. It's going to just exacerbate the traffic situation for residents like us who chose to live here for the very reason that it was livable. So I just wanted to voice my deep concern for this. And it's not only residents in the immediate vicinity, but I've spoken to my neighbors in other regions of the town, and they see that this addition is going to just exacerbate their commute into town and getting around to Stop and Shop and et cetera, et cetera. So I question whether the commission is willing to accept the current level of service as an F. I think that's deplorable. I think it's deplorable that we're considering this even before the state has finalized their redevelopment of the traffic circle. It's like putting the cart before the horse. It's just unconscionable. And I hope the commission would be willing to prioritize the safety of the residents, livability of this town over the sake of an out-of-town developer's profit margin. We made an investment in this town as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Gaylord Meyer. I want to thank you for this opportunity. I live on the other side of town, and I was here for the presentation. Very nicely done, thank you. But I did notice that the one development that they did in Canaan was 2.5 levels, which was very attractive. That I could see. But the size of this is massive. My concern is having developers on the other side of town tell us it's only going to be 350 cars. I refer to the Delamar and the Equinox. We were told one thing, we now have more than 100 cars. We have so many cars that they're on the side streets, they're on John Street, they're on the Old Post Road. The traffic is, they're now considering stoplights. That's not what the historic village wanted. So that is one issue that I hope you will take in consideration. The other in consideration that I didn't hear spoken about is, will there be music? Oh. And that is something that unfortunately was not asked when they approved the Delamar. They now have on Saturday night live bands. The traffic is horrific. It's lost that small community, and I know it may not be a big thing, but for the neighbors who live right around it, it's huge. The other thing that really concerned me was, and I hope that you will look into this, is that when they did the water and the drainage, did they do it at the height of the same numbers when we had Sandy? I didn't hear that come up, and I'm concerned about that. Because we had a body of water that came through here that even our town was not prepared for, and we still haven't remediated that. So everybody else has kind of raised my concern, but I do hope that you will do the honor to the town and the members and taxpayers to have independent studies. Because I have learned personally that when our last commission approved, we didn't do an independent study. We took their word for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening.
My name is Chris J. Yurkevich. I live on 197 Old Post Road. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak and give our perspective of this, what I call bloated large project. I think I'm very open for growth in our town, but I'm also very supportive of responsible growth. I do not want to belabor in this hearing in terms of adding on to what others said, but I do believe it's important that we reinforce the fact that we're here listening to everyone so we can settle on responsible growth for our town. Commissioner Levy's question early on was the potential of 70+ cars for the guests that are at the hotel and diner. Accessing this property right now will be through the entry court, along with all the other cars that go in the parking lot for the apartments. But to access the diner, you need to look at how the trucks, the garbage trucks will access that diner. Somebody coming from North Benson, they'll have to cut through on Belmont Street onto Old Post Road, get in that side exit, that entrance. We need to think about those entry points, or as they call curb cuts, where they are today, and not just for the cars, but for the trucks, the commercial trucks, the FedEx trucks, the Amazon Prime trucks. There's only a 24-foot corridor between the hotel and the building on the right, if you're looking at it from the street. So we need to think about that traffic flow. Second, pedestrian safety. Yes, they may want to up the sidewalk today, a little bit nicer, prettier, some trees. It's still right next to a 4-lane highway. And all that does is help the pedestrian traffic between Shore and Village and the Old Post Road. As you've heard from other speakers, big problem crossing the main road. My daughter today still can't walk to Chick-fil-A because they still haven't put in a crosswalk with a light and a pedestrian crossing sign. So I think it's important to really reconsider what's happening with the circle before you start calling that this is an improvement for pedestrians in general for our town. Protection of wetlands. I heard some great ideas about putting in all kinds of fancy traps and drainage, level 1, level 2, and whatever. This is great. For the first year, second year, third year after the construction, what happens 10 years later? Who's responsible for that drainage to make sure that it's working correctly the entire time? I think, whatever you approve, let's make sure that there's accountability going forward 5, 10, 20 years later. Last, improve the landscaping. For those in Shore and Village, talks of tall new trees, bushes, arborvitaes, whatever. Somebody mentioned the deer. If these are all damaged or die because of drought, will these developers go back and make sure that those trees are there 5 years, 10 years later? So, as noted in last week's meeting, there were already 1,000 approved units in town, but they're unbuilt. Do we need to really pile on another 500+ units just to push this through? I ask that you think about the timing of this. A lot of good feedback today. Make sure we do the right studies before we give a final thumbs up approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Margaret Gadig, and I am a resident in it's Shoreham Village Drive at 83 Shoreham Village Drive. And I submitted a letter. I don't know, let me just ask, because I want to ask to see if it's true that you do read all of the letters that are submitted. And there's careful consideration made for each of the concern expressed. It's hard. You guys have a lot on your plate. You told us that at the beginning. I know, so there is a lot on your plate. But there's one, I did submit a letter of concerns that I had after I was here last week because nobody addressed them. The first one, and it was obvious in Linda's presentation, the integrity of the developers. Their initial presentation portrayed the development with quaint New England style architecture, an appealing facade with shutters. We saw that comparison now in Linda's presentation. And then we were surprised, later, but as questioned by Mr. Collins, the plans presented reflect a change to a less appealing and less expensive materials. So my question to you as commissioners, what assurance can the commission provide that the plans do not continue to change? So what if it comes back down and it's something different? How will we know? If you approve this, how do we know if there aren't other changes that are? So who monitors that? I don't believe it's probably you, but there's got to be somebody in town. Is there somebody that monitors what they're doing to make sure that they adhere to what they said they were going to do? I have doubts because They've already changed it, you know? And my comments to him the first time I saw that was that, well, at least it doesn't look like a prison. And now it does. So, you know, all of the other developments that are going look like prisons. There's no, you can't open the windows, you can't go outside, there's nothing. So that's a concern. And, you know, and I hope that you'll get back to us somehow, and it's like, who monitors the development of this? You know, that to make sure it doesn't change. The other major concern, and nobody has said anything about it. I saw one other letter, and I read through all of them, you know, to get a good feel for what's going on. But was that this blasting of this rock ledge? It was because now I am a next door neighbor, and we have valid concerns over the blasting of the rock ledge at the hotel site. That rock ledge extends into our neighborhood, and many of our homes' foundations are built into that ledge. The blasting to remove the rock has potential to damage the very foundation of our neighborhood. At a separate meeting with the developers, this concern was raised, but without satisfactory response. In a cursory way, they claimed no insurance would cover any damage. Well, I would appeal to the commission to request from the developers to provide detailed insurance policies or plans or whatever to protect us from this. We don't know. You take all that rock out, that's like 30 feet down of rock. And we're on the top of the hills. Most of us, a lot of us are on the top of the hill there. Some are at the bottom and they're going to be affected by it. But those of us right behind it, it's going to shake our foundation. So there's potential damage here. And it might not happen right away. It might be that things slip a little later, you know? But somehow we need some protection. And nobody's addressed that. They didn't address it in any of their presentations, how they're going to take that rock out of there. Just that they're going to remove a lot of it. You asked the question, Catherine, and that was good. You know what? It was nice to know how much they're going to take out, but that's a huge amount. So, and I did ask, I think, that you would, as responsible commissioners, just before you make a decision on this, walk around that property. I mean, have any of you been down there to walk around that property and see? So you know how high up that is and what there's trees growing out of that rock. So if it's a real concern for all of us in the neighborhood, especially those closest to that side. Okay. So I believe, that I know you're busy and I know there's a lot on the plate, but I came across something that I want to share. I want to ask. It was in the Connecticut Examiner. Two headlines struck out at me. One was the Fairfield weighs a flood of affordable housing projects as a deadline for the state moratorium nears. So I beg you not to rush this. I mean, I know there's a lot of them on the plate. The other one that really bothered me was the Fairfield zoning passes a 46-unit apartment complex begrudgingly. So you approved it, but there's a message in here that says you didn't want to do it, but you did it anyway. So that's a big concern. So is this another one to meet some quota or I don't understand all. So this is all new to me. And I've learned more than I ever thought I'd ever learn about, 830G and all this stuff. And I appreciate what you do. I mean, you've got a lot of weight on your shoulders. We elect you to be our representative, to represent we the people, not the developers, okay? And so there's an expectation coming from us that don't understand all this process, that you will do some things to protect what's there. The title, it's all of that, everything that's been said, everybody said all, I'm not going to repeat it. But I am concerned that somehow you were coerced into approving this one. I don't even know where it is in Fairfield. I think I know, but it's only 46 units. And you begrudgingly approved it. This thing's 250 units. It's like, it's massive. You just can't do this, so I beg you, I just say, I'm hoping it would not be necessary for me to address the commission. I hope that would come in here and you guys had already read everything and seen everything and said, you know what, we can't do this. This is just way out of sight. Can't do this. But common sense would prevail. And I ask you to look deeply into your heart, love for this community, and make the right decision. And I pray for our beloved community because we are facing Goliath.
Thank you. Attorney Green, why don't you start? It's 9:30. 10.
Mr. Chair, So there's like 4 people online. Do you want to do that first? No? Okay.
Let me go. I want to start Attorney Green.
Okay.
I think it makes, I want to just start your sooner, I guess, but that's okay.
Yeah, I would have liked to as well, Mr. Chairman, frankly. But things don't always go as we plan.
No, I understand. I remember making those guesses of how long things would take in front of courts and they always trembled. But I blame the judges on that too. But in any case, if it's anybody, member of the public, it's 9:30. We'll go to our curfew at 10 o'clock. May of course submit anything you want to email to us. If you're not able to come back or if you want to supplement something. I thought turning to Attorney Green makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, for the record, Joel Green, for the offices of Green and Gross. And we have provided the commission. One moment. What I think I'm going to do this evening, Mr. Chairman, is I would propose to call some consultants, and I have remarks for the commission, but I know that the commission is eager to hear from some consultants on this application, and I think it would benefit the commission to hear from some of them, and it would also benefit the applicant to be able to respond at the continuation of the hearing. So I have remotely, I have a traffic consultant that I would like to introduce to the commission. I do have a report that I submitted this afternoon that I would like to present. I have emailed the commission and I have also provided copies to the applicant. So the first consultant that I would like to call is Jim Bubaris of Bubaris Traffic Associates, and he will appear remotely this evening. Mr. Bubaris, are you able to start your camera and unmute?
He is there, so.
Yes, I give him a quick call.
Just texted him and he said he was ready to go.
Okay. Mr. Bubaris, are you there? Mr. Bubaris? Plans.
Literally.
Can you hear me?
There we go. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. So you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Jim Bubaris. I'm a principal in Bubaris Traffic Associates. We are now located in East Hampton, Connecticut. And we prepared the document that I assume Mr. Green's going to hand out to you dated today. We reviewed the traffic study. We did a field view. We looked over the post road circle study that was prepared for the Metropolitan COG. And we watched the Town of Fairfield Planning and Zoning hearing video of the last hearing.
Mr. Bubaris, can I just interrupt you for one
Sure.
moment? Just briefly so that we can move along efficiently. For the commission, the last page of the submission I've given you is Bubaris's professional resume. But for the benefit of the public, can you just briefly describe your education, training, and experience for the record?
Okay, I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, a master's degree in traffic engineering. I've been doing traffic engineering for over 50 years. I'm registered as a professional engineer in Connecticut and several other states. At one point in my career, I was the traffic engineer for the town of West Hartford. I have also worked in traffic engineering for the state of Pennsylvania. And for the last 35 years, I've been on my own as a consultant.
Thank you. And at my request, did you conduct a peer review of the traffic report and study that was submitted by the applicant?
I did.
And can you tell the commission what you did as part of your peer review?
Okay, as I started to say, as we looked over the traffic impact study that was prepared by SLR International Corporation, we conducted a field view of our own to see if everything was as stated in the traffic study. We reviewed the document that was prepared entitled Post Road Circle Study, which was prepared for the Metropolitan COG. And at your request, which was a very good idea, I watched the video of the last public hearing on this matter.
And after conducting those activities, can you just review with the commission your findings as summarized in your report?
Okay, my findings, I won't go through the details that you can see in my report. What I did was I looked over the report to make sure it was done as it should be done with following recognized procedures and approved methodologies that the profession uses. And I concur with their findings as to what they came up with. And I agree that they talked to the right people at the DOT and at OSTA and at especially the planning section of the Connecticut Department of Transportation. And I agree with everything that they've done. What I don't necessarily agree with is their conclusions, and that's what I'll go into here. My first finding was that if you look at table 4 of their study, which summarizes the levels of service, what's missing from that table is what we usually provide in these studies, is not only the letter grade of the level of service, but also the amount of delay that's associated with that level of service for that particular situation, and also a value, a ratio that we express as volume to capacity ratio, which compares how much volume you're putting through compared to the capacity of that particular situation. Those two numerical values are missing from that table. And there was an interesting response to one of the commission members had asked the traffic consultant at your last hearing about the Fs and said, well, you know, what does F mean and all that? And what the response was, well, yeah, we have an F now, and it's going to stay an F2, and an F is an F. And I think even today, the initial summary that was presented, somebody said it again from the developments team that an F is an F. Well, you need to understand, and I'm sure you do, levels of service. The letter grades levels of service, each one of those letters represents a range of delay. And if you fall between two certain numbers, it's an A. If it's then two other numbers, it's a B, and so forth till you get to F. At F, it's anything that's over 50 seconds of average delay. So if you have 51 seconds of average delay, or you have 500 seconds of delay, it's an F. And there's no differentiation between whether it's a good F or a bad F. So for someone to say an F is an F, that's not true. What's missing from that table is what is the delay associated with that particular F or with any of those levels of service. And in particular, the left turn coming out of the site drive, the one that will remain, the one that's there now, it's the eastern one, and the one that will remain will go to a level, it will stay a level of service F, but will go to as much as an 87-second delay as an average per vehicle. 87 seconds. That's almost a minute and a half. So that's a minute and a half people are going to have to wait to get out of there to make the left. So and making a right is really not going to work for them because, as was mentioned by the developer, and I agree with the finding, 75% of the traffic that will be coming out of there will be going to the west. And given the situation as it is today, you have to make a left in order to complete that movement to go west. So that means with everything the way it is today, people are going to have to sit there for, on average, a minute and a half before they're going to be able to get out of there to make that left. The development proposes 537 parking spaces, of which 473 are to be garage spaces and 64 will be surface spaces. Of the 473 spaces in the garage, 110 will be allocated to the hotel, and the remaining 363 will be allocated to the residences. With 250 residences proposed, that works out to about 1.45 spaces per residential unit. I submit that's not enough. That's not enough because even with a one-bedroom apartment, you may have two people living in that apartment sharing one bedroom, but those two people may each work at different places and they might have each a car. So that means that one-bedroom apartment needs two spaces. So I submit they're not putting in enough parking, or maybe they're putting in too many residential spaces. It's just that there's not enough space to do everything that they're trying to do with what is being allocated here. And finally, the proposed zoning amendment increases the density from 6.9 to 40 dwelling units. It's 6.9 now, and they want to make it 40 dwelling units per acre. So that means at 6.5 acres, which is the size of the site, you'll be going from what is now an allowed 44 units to what would be 256 units. That's almost a six-fold increase. Now, there's a difference between what the zoning allows and what they're trying to do to change the zoning to allow even more. And as everybody knows, we won't belabor the point, that Post Road Circle area is a very difficult space. You all know that. And it's very difficult to navigate it, especially if you're a stranger to the area. And it's very difficult because you've got a lot of mergers that take place, and the crash history shows that there's a lot of people running into each other. When you look at the traffic study that was presented, one of the last pages following the narrative is a plan by the DOT to improve that area. It's a very good plan, and it's a wonderful plan, and it's going to make a lot of significant improvements. And what it's basically going to do, it's going to make the circle even bigger so that the hotel situation, the residential situation here, when they come out of the driveway, they're not going to be able to go left. They can only go right because the street in front of them is going to be one way from west to east. And they're gonna have to make a right and go around in order to get to the other side of the circle in order to go west. And as I said, 75% of them, that's what they're gonna be wanting to do. And it's a wonderful plan. It's basically two roundabouts that are, one will be the full-size roundabout, the other one will be split and separated around the area and all that, and it's a wonderful plan. However, that wonderful plan is at least 5 years away, and maybe even 10. There's nothing that I was able to find that shows that it's even more than just somebody's idea of what needs to be done out there. So the point I'm making, I think you know what I'm trying to say here, is my suggestion would be is before anybody entertains increasing the allowed density here, maybe that plan should be in place first. And until that plan gets in place, maybe they should be held to the allowed density as it stands today, because I don't think you want to create any more problems out there than you have. So that's my presentation as a summary, unless you have any questions.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, just a few questions. So Mr. Barberis, just so we're clear, you use the word maybe, but is it your professional opinion that a development of this magnitude with this configuration from a traffic standpoint should not be built until those improvements are made to the circle?
Yes, that would be my recommendation. I mean, if I was the town, I wouldn't allow them to build any more than what is now allowed. All right, but I certainly wouldn't allow them to do more, not until the improvements in place.
And next, with based on your education, training, and experience, where there is an 87-second delay presented for as the site is presently configured and as the circle is presently configured, all of those roads in that system. So as they're presently configured, that is it your opinion that 87-second delay, in addition to being an unacceptable delay, will create a dangerous condition with drivers trying to take a quick left turn or to get out of the site or getting impatient with that left turn? Is that in your opinion, does that create a dangerous condition?
It creates a dangerous condition in that people get frustrated. And when they get frustrated, they start to take chances and they cut out. I mean, you start sitting out there for more than 30 seconds, 45 seconds tops. You're starting to get frustrated, and then you say, okay, that's good enough for me. I'm going to go now. So yes, I feel that would be a dangerous situation.
And also, I note that as you probably know, and from our discussions, Fairfield is a community of neighborhoods, and we have a robust public education system. I note that the traffic counts were performed during the month of June. And as you're also aware, we have two universities in town with Sacred Heart University and Fairfield University. Based on your professional experience, it was taking those traffic counts during the month of June when those schools are out of session and perhaps the public schools were equally out of session. Is that affect the reliability of the traffic counts?
It all depends on what the DOT has done with the counts that were collected in the summer. If they expanded them to reflect the fact that it's not the highest time of the year, then the volumes that were used by the consultant to do his analysis are valid. But if they weren't, then I would say they're on the low side, and you're not getting a good representation of what actually happens, over the normal part of the year, which is not the summer.
Before I just wanted to offer a comment for the commission, and that is as part of the array of questions that I presented this evening, and I was out of the room for 45 minutes. I don't know whether these were answered, but among the questions were whether the hotel will feature a restaurant that's open to the public other than Circle Diner, whether the hotel features a bar or lounge serving liquor that's open to the public, whether the hotel will feature any office space or the on-premises office space for lease, whether the hotel features gym, yoga studios, or other facilities open to the public, whether there's an event space either in the residential building or the hotel, whether there's proposed to be retail stores. And I understand the applicant will be responding to those questions. So I may recall Mr. Bubaris on that, because obviously the answers to those may drive different conclusions as to traffic volume on the site. With that, I imagine the commission has questions for Mr. Bubaris.
Commissioner Braun?
I have a question about the grade of F. This came up in a hearing I had long ago before I was on this commission. There's no such thing as an F minus like in school, but is there a way of grading this? If you could give it a grade, it said it's doubling in the amount of wait time. Does that make it a G, an H? I mean, how do you then should the traffic consultant have given a more of an explanation of that instead of just saying it's F? That's the lowest grade you can get.
Is that a question of me?
Yeah.
Uh,
What's your thought on the F minus, G?
Well, what you said is something I've always thought was something that we should have given more thought to as a profession, because when it does get to F, they probably should be an F plus, an F minus situation. We haven't yet gotten into the discussion about there being a GH and a GHI and all that. But as I started my presentation tonight, is that the table 4 in the traffic study, which has the summary of the letter grades associated with all the intersections that were evaluated, what it's missing is what we traffic engineers typically are required to also include in that table. And when we make a presentation to the DOT and OSTA, and that is to also include 2 numerical numbers, numerical values that go with those findings. And that is 1, the associated average delay for that particular movement that goes with that letter grade, and also the measurement of volume to capacity. Every movement that's out there has a certain capacity associated with it, and that's based on how it's configured, how wide it is, how it's controlled, and given that it has a certain capacity associated, it could handle a certain amount. We then have a ratio that we do, which is we take the particular volume that we're putting through that movement, and we take the ratio of V over C, volume to capacity, and if it's under 1, that means we haven't reached the capacity. It falls within the A to F ranges. And then the numbers will tell you which one of those it is. If it's above a 1, it means that the capacity has been exceeded. Then it's a failure, and it's a real bad F. Okay? So as I said, what's missing from what was presented, and maybe you as a commission want to ask for it, you need that table to be revised and for them to show you what the numerical values of average delay and volume to capacity ratios are for each of the movements that they evaluated.
I have a follow-up question. Can I?
Go ahead.
I just want to go to somebody else. The piazza, that's right when you enter, everybody that goes to the hotel or the apartment enters and exits through the same entryway on the post road. I'm not talking about down where the diner is, up there. And according to the testimony of the architect, everyone goes in there. If you're a hotel guest, if you're signing up for an apartment, There's surface parking right there where you can walk in to the leasing office or the hotel lobby. So you have people parking there. It's also pedestrian friendly. And you have people coming in and out that live there, 110 hotel rooms and 250 units. I don't know how many bedrooms, but it's probably more than that in terms of cars. It seems like and also, he said that people going to the diner might go in there also. People from the public could be going at that entrance to go to the diner or to park in the parking garage to go to the diner. The parking garage entrance is right also off that piazza. I think when you go in the entryway, it's right to the left there. It seems like it's very busy, and I have a concern over safety, given that it's also supposed to be a pedestrian gathering or wandering spot. And if you have a backup, they say that the solution to the backup or the F intersection service level there is that it will accommodate, all the cars will be accommodated on site. Does that create a safety issue with all the activity going on right there where that entrance is?
Again, is that a question for me?
It's a question, yes.
Yeah, yes, it is.
I think it's an issue. I'm asking you if you think it's an issue. I'm not
Yes,
the
it,
expert.
it is a problem. It's not a good situation. If you're gonna have, they're cutting out one of the driveways of the three that are already there. And even the diner now is gonna have to come through there. I mean, the diner can make a right out, but if they want to go left, they're gonna have to come out over to this particular one driveway that is left for everybody, and they're going to have to make the left with everybody else, as well. That is not a good situation. There's just too much going on in this proposed site, just too much. And then, as you know, there's too much going on out on the street.
Thank you.
Mr. Bubaris, normally my understanding was if you lose a curb cut, in this case going from 3 to 2, that generally creates a more safe circumstance, but you disagree in this case?
Where I disagree in this case is that everybody is being funneled to a very difficult left turn maneuver where you have a street that can't accommodate it. If you take what they're proposing and wait until the improvement that the DOT supposedly is going to make was in place, you'd have a completely different picture because everybody coming out of that site will be coming out onto a one-way street, and they'll all be making a right turn. And everybody will be making a right turn. And I'm sure you're familiar with roundabouts and how they're working. And when roundabouts were first introduced, everybody had a problem with them because they said, no, this is not good. But once you've played with a roundabout for a while and done it for yourself, you come to realize that by people making right turns, things become a lot safer when they don't have to make a left turn. And that's exactly what's going to come about when the DOT makes the improvement. And I'm not saying they're not going to make the improvement. It's just that we don't know how far away it is. And once that happens, their plan will work. Okay. So coming from 3 driveways down to 2 and having everybody coming out of that one driveway, it'll work because everybody that'll be coming out is going to have to make a right turn. They won't be able to make that left.
It was earlier said, to be fair to the traffic engineer earlier, I thought he went through the F and difference in the delay. He didn't go in the first time because he didn't have the information I thought, but went through it today. But what was also said earlier about the F grade was as you extend outward and more delay, whatever system or database or mechanisms that the industry uses to calculate that delay is not as reliable or wonky or whatever the phrasing was. Do you share that analysis?
I agree with what was said. When you really have substantial delay. I just did a project in Hamden.
Just so I understand that, because before you go, if you
Yes.
have more delay, whatever statistical analysis you use becomes less reliable at that point.
It becomes less reliable, but it's still not a good situation.
That's
All
fine.
right?
I want to make, what I found helpful in your peer review was acknowledging at least where you had similarities and then identifying the differences. So that's what I'm trying to do, is see where, if what was said earlier about the unreliability or potential unreliability, long delays in F, if you shared that analysis.
It depends on how bad the delay is, okay?
No, that's fine.
The more the delay is shown to be a high number, the higher the number the delay becomes, the more it becomes a guess than a hard number you can count on. I agree with what was said, yes.
I had one final question unless anybody else did. We'll be back next time. I sound like he might be finishing up. I suspect he will be. Mr. Green, Attorney Green,
The commission.
commission wants it.
Questions, but.
Okay.
Next time.
All right, that's fine. I'll end with this. I think it makes sense, as everybody has said. Why not have these DOT improvements in first before this project? We don't know when that will be. I guess the question I have for you is, if the commission decides for whatever reason to go forward with this project, if that accelerates, more likely to have accelerate the DOT in implementing these changes, or do you have no opinion on that?
Are you asking if the town approves this project, will the DOT accelerate the improvement?
Yes.
I think that would be very unlikely.
Thank you. All right, I think we'll leave it at that. We'll pick up where we are now and get back next week.
Mr. Chair, can I just verify for the Post Road project is 2 sections, and I'll just bring this up because I was in a meeting today where they talked about it. They have design dollars for the Post Road Circle project at DOT. What that means for when they build it, we won't know, but they do have federal design dollars to design it. The portion that is, that affects most people from the jug handle east, that's under design right now, and it's about 30% design from the Connecticut.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. All right. I will-
Just before we break,
Hold on, ladies, hold on before we make a lot of noise.
before you adjourn, Mr. Trinkus was here this evening to present, and I understand the commission is going to adjourn, but he may have to appear hopefully next week. As well.
I guess we probably should have went with him then.
Yeah, it's just difficult with this compressed schedule.
All right, I will leave this meeting open and adjourn. I'll leave this hearing open and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Next week.
Anytime.